What's up, guys? This is Justin Coffin for the 330 Sports Show. Today is Thursday, September 9th, 2021. We are going to get into our Thursday shows. So Thursday shows during football season are going to look a lot like this. We're going to bring you a ton of information. Today is a little bit extra special. We have a very long show. If you look in our comments section, I'm going to timestamp specific teams. The Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Buckeyes, the Penguins, all that stuff. But we are going to look a little bit at the Browns, a little bit at the Buckeyes, a little bit at the Penguins. We're going to get into the AFC North predictions. We're going to have Steve Leslie from YSN break down his top 5 games. And in between, for our transitions, we're going to have some Thursday thoughts on what's going on either in pop culture or the sports world. So let's get it started. Let's get into our Ohio State preview, and good luck to the Buckeyes against the Ducks this weekend. What's up, guys? Let's get into a little bit of Buckeye talk here before we get into our AFC North preview show. So the Buckeyes obviously last week traveled to Minnesota on a Thursday night, had a couple extra days to get ready for the Ducks, who will come to the Horseshoe. Now, what's exciting for this is going to be the first time fans really have been in the Horseshoe in about 2 years. First time Ohio State and Oregon have played since the 2015 national championship game. Ohio State is 9-0 all time against Oregon. They have won 23 straight home games, and Oregon is 1-25 all time in road games against top 5 teams. So let's make it 1-26. The Buckeyes, after week 1, sit at number 3 in the rankings. Alabama had a very, very impressive win at against Miami at a neutral site. Georgia took care of Clemson in a defensive struggle. Oklahoma did struggle against Tulane, but came out victorious. Texas A&M started slow against Kent, but took control towards the end. So Big Ten and Penn State had a very nice victory last week at Wisconsin. Iowa looked very, very impressive, beating Indiana, who was highly touted coming into this year. Wisconsin looked pretty good. Michigan had an impressive win over a MAC school, Western Michigan, and Michigan State looked good too. So a lot of really solid teams in the Big Ten. No one stands out outside of Ohio State as elite, but Penn State, Iowa could challenge for the top spot. So we'll see as the weeks unfold and we get more into Big Ten play. But a lot of good cross matchups last week leading into week 2. So Ohio State and Oregon, obviously, were supposed to play last year. That game got canceled because of COVID. But, the Buckeyes right now are sitting at about a 14-point favorite. C.J. Stroud struggled a little bit in the first half last week. First game as a starting quarterback. First game really played in about 2 years as a starting quarterback since his high school years. But obviously, again, struggled in the first half, but really came back and bounced back. And the Buckeyes had 4 plays of over 50 yards last week. And, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, all with huge, huge games for the Buckeyes. And we look to continue that going forward this week. I want to just highlight real quick the defensive starters against Minnesota. The Buckeyes had a lot of guys out. They had Sevyn Banks out, Cam Brown out, 3 new starters at the linebacker position. Tommy Eichenberg, first-time starter. Taraja Mitchell, first-time starter. Ronnie Hickman, who plays the bullet, which is kind of a hybrid linebacker safety position, first-time starter. Teron Vincent, first-time starter. The defensive line is pretty solid group. Tyreek Smith, Teron Vincent, Haskell Garrett, Zach Harrison, and you got a bunch of young, talented guys behind them, but just very inexperienced. The secondary is the biggest question mark for Ohio State going forward, but 2 really young guys stepped up. I want to highlight Denzel Burke, true freshman, true freshman comes in, starts, goes against Minnesota's number one receiver who played. Their top receiver was out last week, but Denzel Burke did a very, very good job, I thought, last week against the Gophers. Ryan Watts is a guy to keep your eye on. He is about 6'2", 6'3", which is very tall for a cornerback, but they seem to really like him. So look for Ryan Watts, Denzel Burke to make some plays. Maybe Legend Cavazos gets in there, a few other guys. Now, Josh Proctor, I do not know his health going into this week, but he is someone to keep an eye on. He is a very, very important member of that Buckeye defense. So we'll see if he is available to play. And we'll see if Sevyn Banks, Cam Brown, and a few others are available to play. So with that said, I like the Buckeyes to win. I'm going to stay away from the spread, but big game in the Horseshoe. This game is at noon on Fox, and it matches up the 11th ranked Ducks against the number 4 seeded Buckeyes. So go Buckeyes. Let's get the job done. Switching real quick to YSU. YSU is going to head up to Big Ten territory in East Lansing, Michigan. They're going to take on the Michigan State Spartans. YSU coming off an overtime victory to Incarnate Word last week. And this game against Michigan State will take place as well on Saturday at noon. You can watch the game on the Big Ten Network, or if you are out and about and you want to listen, you can listen to friends of the show, Bob Hannon and Steve Leslie on 570 WKBN. So go Penguins. This is obviously a formidable challenge, toughest game on their schedule. And Michigan State looked really, really good against Northwestern in week 1, but they do play Miami, the Miami Hurricanes next week. So they could be, maybe looking ahead, and YSU could maybe come in there and, give them a scare, or let's possibly pull out a W. So go Penguins, go Buckeyes, and let's get the job done. Get into our AFC North preview coming up here. We are going to first feature Allie Hysong of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. She joined us from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We really appreciate her joining us. We're also going to feature Matt Jergensen of the Baltimore Blitz podcast. We are going to feature Charlie Jennings and Dave Spires talking about the Steelers, and Jason Dewicke that's going to talk and break down the Cincinnati Bengals. Each of these breakdowns are roughly about 30 to 35 minutes. So I will put timestamps in the comments so you can kind of check out which team you're looking for, whether it's the Browns, Ravens, Steelers, or Bengals, or you can, listen to them all and get a kind of a feel for the AFC North. So we're going to get right into that right now with Allie, and, hope you guys get something out of this, and appreciate you listening.
Hey guys, Justin Coffin for the 330 Sports Show. We've been doing our AFC North preview shows, and joining me for this one, and correct me if I mispronounce the name, but it's Allie Hysong, correct?
Got it. That's
all right. Very good. So Allie, first time on our show, but was kind enough to join us on a Wednesday night before the season. NFL obviously kicks off tomorrow night with Cowboys and Buccaneers, but Browns start this Sunday in Kansas City. So Allie, first of all, tell us about yourself and your podcast and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I actually just wrapped up my podcast a few minutes ago. I'm the co-host of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. It's a show by the fans for the fans. We cover the Browns, of course. I'm a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. I live down here in South Carolina now. Brought my fandom down here to the South with me. But we do cover college football and the entire NFL, especially a deep dive on the AFC North. But we are a Browns-focused podcast, of course. Here We Go Brownies. But hey, anytime I get to talk a little bit of sports, a little bit of football, it's a win for me.
Very good. How's your you're a Buckeye fan too, right?
Oh, a diehard.
How's that down in the South?
You know what? Actually, there's a ton of Buckeyes down here.
Okay.
When I first moved down to South Carolina, I moved out of college. I went to Capital University in Columbus.
Yep.
After college, I moved down south for zero reason at all, other than the fact that I needed to get out of Ohio. And I moved to Charleston. And when I told people from Charleston that I was from Ohio, they were immediately like, get out of here. We don't want you here. And then when I moved to Hilton Head, and then now I'm in Myrtle Beach, they were much more welcoming because it's more of a tourist focused area.
Sure.
So there's a lot of Buckeyes, there's a lot of Browns fans, there's just a lot of, quite frankly, there's a lot of Northerners that live here. So you get a lot of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So very welcoming here in the dirty Myrtle, South Carolina.
Very good. Very good. So last year, obviously a weird year with COVID and stuff, but do you make it up to games during the season?
I didn't last year, of course.
Right.
And I didn't make it in 2019 either, just because I had been so busy with work.
Sure.
And I really had just moved down to South Carolina, so it really wasn't too much of an option. But 2018, I made it to a couple, which was just a lot of fun. And I'm really hoping that this year I can make it home much more often than I have in the past.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Very good. So let's start off initially with the Browns, and let me have your initial thoughts and impressions on Stefanski and maybe the rest of the coaching staff.
Well, I think it all starts, and I get made fun of on my podcast because I say the word alignment so much, but coming into last season when they brought in Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and he hired his entire coaching staff, there was so much alignment within the organization. And bringing in players in the personnel groupings to be able to match his style of offense and to match the Joe Woods schematics on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's really started with alignment within the organization culturally, personnel wise, coaching wise, and then to bring it back with the continuity of the entire coaching staff. It just emphasizes the structure that Andrew Berry has put into place within the organization. So as we approach this year, just looking at Kevin Stefanski and the entire coaching staff, you have to feel pretty good about it. You've got to feel pretty good. This is the first time in what I can remember where you're running it back with the entire coaching staff. I remember years past where, you bring it back with the head coach, but the coordinators are different. Or, you've got a new play caller, and that's not the case. So it's really putting the entire team in a position of strength going into the season.
I like that word alignment. It's kind of nice because it's like the three main pieces too. A lot of people will say in your organization are your quarterback, your head coach, and your GM. And the Browns seem to have at least nailed them all, at least right now. So what's your thoughts on Baker?
Look, you know what? I know a ton of people are saying Baker's got to go out and prove it. I'm not of that mindset. I think Baker already did. He's coming into a great position here where he's got, he's got the former head coach of the year. He's got his play callers. He's got everything that he had last year, and he had such a successful season last year. I don't think he has to go out and prove anything. I think he just needs to do what he did again, right? I think he just needs to continue to be Baker Mayfield. So I'm excited. I look forward to a big season out of Baker. I'm looking at 4,000 passing yards possibly. I think he definitely hits a personal goal on that front. I think this is going to be a huge year for him, of course, as long as everybody can remain healthy, etc. Coming into that same structure and that continuity, I think it's really going to put him in a position to win.
Very good. Very good. What do you think this team's biggest strength and biggest weaknesses are? You can go with either one first. So what do you think the biggest strengths, biggest weakness?
Well, I think I'm going to start with weakness so I can end on a positive.
Okay.
I'm going to go with special teams as it currently stands right now.
Okay.
Now, and I'm not saying the return game. I'm really putting an emphasis right now on the kicking game.
Sure.
Cody Parkey goes out with the injury. His season has ended with the Cleveland Browns. And you have Chase McLaughlin in there who shined a lot of promise in the earlier preseason games, but down in Atlanta, not so much. So I still think there's some question marks on that front. But on that same note, I have a ton of faith in Coach Prefer. He knows what he's doing. And my thought with special teams is you just have to be neutral. Just be neutral. Don't cause any issues with the offense and defense, and you're going to blend right in. If you're good, it's just a bonus. Just be neutral. So I think that right now, as it currently stands right here, right now, that's probably the biggest weakness. Biggest strength, Does it have to be, on offense or defense? Because
No, whatever you want.
Honestly, I think the biggest strength for this team right now is they're running it back. The same personnel, the same coaching staff. Now, of course, they add a ton in free agency and in the draft, but they didn't lose anybody. They didn't lose anybody significant. So I think just that continuity coming back, the same system, the same structure is probably their biggest strength. That's just not something that typically happens, especially with a playoff caliber team. Last season, a lot of times when you make the playoffs and you've got a good offense or a good defense, you lose a lot of those position coaches to, promotions throughout the NFL. And that just wasn't the case. So I think they're coming back. Really, their coaching, their alignment within the organization is their current strength.
I love it. You use the word alignment. Then no one can make funny of that.
I say I'm Allie Alignment Hysong. Allie short for alignment. That's the joke.
I like it. I'm going to borrow that word. I'm going to start
using it.
It's
yours.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the wide receivers, because obviously when Odell went down last year, that was a big point of contention. Well, this offense is taken off now that Odell's not there. And, a lot of people were like, well, that's finally when things like got in sync. They didn't have a preseason or an off season. They didn't, and different things like that. So your take on Odell and what he means to this team, and, as well as the other receivers, Jarvis and, basically the whole receiving core.
Well, I think that the notion that this team is better without Odell Beckham Jr. is egregious. And I just throw that out the window. As you mentioned, there was no offseason really last year. There was no preseason. The training camp was really limited. They weren't able to gel in the way that they probably really wanted to. So at the point where Odell Beckham Jr. goes down is really just when the offense started to come together. It had nothing to do with whether or not he was on the field. That's just when they started to gel. So one thing that I said as we came into this season, as we looked at free agents, who's coming back, what are we going to do in the draft? One thing that stood out to me in the wide receiver room was there is a sense of redundancy. You have a lot of players that can do a lot of the same things. And really prior to losing Kadarius Hodge, you've got Kadarius Hodge, Hollywood Higgins, Jarvis Landry. A lot of those guys can do kind of the same thing. Now you throw Odell Beckham Jr. in there, he can take the top off of a defense. You add Anthony Schwartz into that room, who's just obviously game-changing speed, world-class speed. And opposing defenses are going to have to account for that. They're going to have to put a guy on that. Demetric Felton, who I know they have listed as a running back right now, but can kind of be in there as a slot receiver. I think they get rid of some of that redundancy. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who can be that big-bodied receiver. I like it. As long as everybody can remain healthy, I think it's one of the better receiving core in the NFL.
Okay. All right. Very good. Sticking with the sort of receiving position, but switching to tight end, who do you think is going to be the best tight end at this season's end out of the three?
That's a tough one. That's a really difficult question, but I am going to go with David Njoku.
Okay.
I think that this is a very big season for David. Going into last season, Harrison Bryant coming in as a rookie, he had some issues with ball security and just, kind of meshing into this offense. Austin Hooper, I think, did well, but I don't think he played the role that we all thought he probably would. Now, I think he is going to take on a larger role this season, but my thought, and I remember when David Njoku requested that trade, everybody was saying, well, where's the perfect place for him? I'm like, it's Cleveland. He's the perfect complement to Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper's kind of your just down the seam stereotypical tight end. David Njoku, he can almost be a big-bodied receiver that can make those basketball-style catches. They complement each other perfectly. He's worked on his blocking. He's worked on his catching ability. I think David Njoku at the end of the season is going to be the best tight end on this roster.
Very nice. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the two probably biggest strengths of this team, arguably the offensive line and the running game. So I'll just have you take it. Whichever one you want to tackle first, go for it.
Well, I think it starts with the offensive line. Now, don't get me wrong. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson. I'll throw Demetric Felton and Andy Janovich into that mold as well. They can't be who they are without this offensive line. Now, I think they're very, very, elite players. Don't get me wrong, and I'll get into that in a second. But this offensive line is, in my eyes, the best in the National Football League. You've got your two ends. You've got Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, who I think Jed does need to kind of grow into his role a little bit. Last season, he was coming off of right tackles, switching from right tackle to left tackle in the NFL. Pretty big transition. So I think he's still got a lot to learn and a lot to prove. But really, that interior, that offensive line is just insane. J.C. Treader, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. I remember going into last season, and on my podcast, I had Nick Shook from the NFL Network. I asked him, I said, what are they going to do at the right guard position? And he's like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe throw Chris Hubbard in there. Then, here comes Wyatt Teller.
Yeah,
the
right.
best guard in the NFL. So taking a look at that, and it doesn't get talked about enough how important Bill Callahan is to this team. So I think the entire offense, receiving, tight end, running game, everything, Baker Mayfield, it starts with the offensive line. If you don't have that brick wall there, none of this is possible. Not only are they a brick wall and they're good in pass protection, but they can also just be on the move in the screen game. And of course, they create those holes for Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Talking about them, I'm of the belief that we have the best backfield in the NFL, and it's not even a question. I mean, it's just by a wide margin. I think that they're both going to be, I don't have a lot to say about them because they're just that good. They're just going to go out and just run the ball down everybody's throats. And quite frankly, I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. And they complement each other so well. They really do. With, Hunt out of the backfield, Chubb with, just continually getting better as the game goes on. So let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. Obviously a weakness last year, at least on the back end, and, sort of giving up unnecessary points. But we had a lot of guys in there because of injuries. Yeah. So possibly 9 new starters on defense this year. Besides you take out Garrett, you take out Ward, you're going to have 9 different guys in there. Talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball and what you think your expectations for them this year.
Well, as I mentioned, you bring in Joe Woods, and if you look at it with Kevin Stefanski and what he wanted to run, Andrew Berry said, okay, in 2020, we're going to give you the personnel to run your offense. We bring in Austin Hooper, guys like that to be able to run this offense. They couldn't put that same emphasis on the defense because money, time didn't allow for it in 2020. They do that this offseason. They add 9 new starters to this defense. I think we will be able to see on the defensive side of the ball what Kevin Stefanski did on the offensive side last year. So Joe Woods has the personnel that he wants to be able to run the style of defense that he wants to. It's that Seattle style defense. They're going to get after the quarterback, that front 7. Flat out, they're just going to get after the quarterback. And I think that's also going to free up the secondary to allow them to be more locked down. I'm excited to see Greg Newsome. He's kind of a long, rangy corner, your Richard Sherman type. Sure. And of course, I'm just pumped up about, first off, JOK. Can't wait for that guy. Malik McDowell, Tack McKinley, Jadeveon Clowney, some of those guys. I'm excited for the safeties. JJ3, Grant Delpit, I cannot wait to see. And I feel like nobody's talking about Ronnie Harrison out there and what he can contribute. So I think it's all just going to work together. Now, 9 new starters, it can take some time to gel, right? We might see some hiccups, but that's okay. That's going to happen. I think by midpoint in the season, it's going to be smooth sailing.
Very good. Very good. All right, let's go to, can you give me, this is sort of a random one. Can you give me a bold prediction for the Cleveland Browns this year?
For the year, yeah. This isn't bold, but I'm going to start with this one. I think Myles Garrett wins the Defensive Player of the Year award.
Okay.
I don't think that's bold because I think that's going to happen. It's very possible if he can stay healthy. My bold prediction actually is Tack McKinley gets double-digit sacks.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason I say that is when you take a look at what the Browns can do defensively, they talk a lot about this NASCAR package. You've got Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney next to him. You've got, you can throw Malik McDowell or Malik Jackson there at the other defensive tackle position, but then you have Tack McKinley on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. So you got a lot of guys just rushing the quarterback. And I think that a lot of teams are going to put much more emphasis on the 3 other guys that I mentioned, freeing up a Tack McKinley, who has a lot to prove. Jadeveon Clowney, does he always get home? No. But is he an elite run stopper? Of course. So I'm going to give the edge right now to Tack McKinley, and I think he gets double-digit sacks.
Very good. Okay. All right. So with that, if you think Myles Garrett's the Defensive Player of the Year, he's probably obviously the Browns' defensive MVP. So let's switch to the offensive side of the ball. Who do you think the MVP of the Browns offense at the end of the season is?
You know what? There's so many weapons. It's hard to pick,
Mm-hmm.
but all of those weapons can't be great if they don't have Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to give it to Baker Mayfield. I think he has a career year. Of course, we're going into a season where there's some question marks up in the air in terms of his contract extension, what that's going to look like, what
Sure.
he's worth. So could you say he's got something to prove? Sure. He's got that chip on his shoulder. I think he goes out, he executes. He has the best career of his NFL, or the best season of his NFL career. And I think he shuts up all the haters, and Baker Mayfield comes away with the MVP. Which
means he will get paid heavily. So, but that's a win for all of us. We are hoping you're right. All right, I'm going to put up the Browns schedule on the screen, and if I'm going to have you sort of give me your prediction for win-loss and maybe some, what you think might be the toughest. Now, I don't know if you can see it. I sort of wrote in my predictions very faintly on there, but I think the Browns are I see 12 wins, possibly 13 wins on this schedule, but I want your opinion on what you think, how this overall season's going to go.
Well, I started with, I went through the schedule on my show, and I said, yeah, I'm going to give them 12 wins. That's what I feel comfortable with, maybe 13. I think, honestly, week 1 is going to be scary. It's going to be tough. Do I think it's possible to come away with a win? Yeah, absolutely, I do. I actually just got off of my show where I said I think they win convincingly. However, it's going to be a tough outing. A couple other games that I have just marked as some ones. At Chargers, I think could be a tough game. They're a very good young football team. Justin Herbert, he could really be putting up some good numbers this season. They've got a great defense. At Patriots scares me a little bit as well. Yep. Those are the two that really just kind of have me spooked. And in Baltimore, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think that we sweep the Steelers, we sweep the Bengals, but I do think that we split with Baltimore.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let me go to this next then. And I want you to, out of the 4 starting quarterbacks in the AFC North, I want you to rank them 1 to 4.
Oh gosh. Okay. I hate this. No, I'm going to take off my brown and orange glasses for a moment. And I'm just basing this off of their current or their career so far. I think Lamar Jackson is probably the most talented quarterback in the AFC North right now. Now, it's going to be interesting this year because he's going to have to throw the ball, right? They don't have J.K. Dobbins. So that could change. But as it currently stands right here, right now, I'm going to give him 1. I'm going to go Baker 2, Ben 3, Joe Burrow 4.
Interesting.
And I say Joe Burrow 4 really off of the injury. He didn't get a chance to finish out his season and prove his worth. I do think he bounces back. Big Ben, I put him 3 just based off of his the injury that he had. He kind of went off a little bit last year.
Sure.
I do think, watch out for the Steelers, and I hate saying that. I think that they can and will beat you. They are a team that can and will beat you. They're still very, very good. Ben Roethlisberger is still a very good quarterback. He can pick you apart. But at this point in his career, I am going to give Baker Mayfield the nod here.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know. The Steelers scare me a little bit more than the Ravens do. And I think it's just based on that prior history and all their skill positions. So let's go to this now. Who will be an under the radar player for the Cleveland Browns that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about right now?
Anthony Walker on the defensive side of the ball, the linebacker. There's just so much. They had 9 defensive starters. Everybody right now is looking at that front 4. It's wicked. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is absolutely insane. And of course, the secondary. You got Greg Newsome. You got Grant coming back. JJ3, Ronnie Harrison, as I mentioned, of course, Denzel Ward. You add Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Everybody's so excited about that. And we talk about all the speed that you have to add on defense. They went out and did that. But I think when you look at it, that middle linebacker position in Anthony Walker just went under the radar. And I don't really know why. He was one of my favorite pickups of this offseason.
Sure.
We know the impact that he had just in terms of a leadership standpoint, let alone just his on the field ability in Indianapolis. He's going to be the play caller on the defensive side of the ball here in Cleveland, and just his leadership ability and his on the field play. I'm just excited for him, and I think a lot of people don't quite know what they have in Anthony Walker.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. I like that. I think a lot of the Colts were his teammates were sad to have
Darius
lost him.
Leonard had come out and was very outwardly emotional about the loss of, or losing him to the Cleveland Browns.
Well, their losses are gained, so hopefully, I like that prediction. That's a good one. So let's go now, sort of to an overarching theme. Let's go to division winners, and let's just sort of go through the AFC first. So let's start with the AFC East and who you think comes out of that division.
I honestly, and I know a lot of people are saying right now that you've got Tua coming into his second year, has a lot to prove. Mac Jones, is a first-year starter. Of course, same with Zach Wilson. I still think that's a pretty tough division, right? And I think a lot of people are just kind of sleeping on it. But I'm going to give it to the Bills. They're far and away the best team in that division. Okay.
All right. What do you think about the Pats this year?
Again, they're a team that can and will beat you. They're probably not going to win they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Like point blank. Not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be that good. But they're a sneaky good team that can and will beat you.
Okay. Let's go to maybe the weakest division of football, the AFC South.
I'm going to go with the Titans here. They have the most continuity, I suppose. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. They have an okay defense. I do like some of their receivers. You just don't know what's going on in Houston. Indianapolis, the quarterback situation's a little wonky with what's going on with the injury front, and Jacksonville. God only knows. So give me the Titans on that one. Okay.
All right. AFC West.
Yeah, I don't think this is tough at all. Give me the Chiefs.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll come back to the AFC North last. So let's go to the NFC East, or maybe some might say that's the weakest division of football.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought that I have. Again, another sneaky good team that can and will beat you is Washington. Well coached with Ron Rivera. Fitzmagic, we all know what he can do, but that defense they're pretty tough. I like them. They've got Terry McLaurin there, bring in Curtis Samuel. I kind of like them right now. Give me Washington.
All right. AFC or NFC South.
This one got me a little bit, just because there's some decent teams down there. Anybody can take the division, but I'm going to go Tampa Bay.
Okay. Yeah. That's hard to argue with the Super Bowl champs. NFC West.
The NFC is tough. The NFC is really tough. I kind of was going back and forth on this one with the 49ers, the Rams. What do you do? I am going to go with the 49ers here. That defense alone. I think the Rams are probably a close second.
Okay.
Really almost gave them the nod, but I just like the 49ers defense too much.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then NFC North.
Packers. I'll take the Packers.
Okay. Last dance for Rodgers.
Yeah, I think so. I don't quite love the whole Chicago situation with what they're doing. Fields in there, but that offense just is not great. The Vikings, watch out for them. They can probably, another team that can and will beat you. Detroit, though, I'm sorry. Lions fans, I'll take the Packers.
Okay. All right. And then bringing it back to the AFC North, who is, I'll tell you what, rank the teams in order, 1 to 4.
All right. I think that's a little bit easier than the quarterback situation. I'm gonna rank the Browns number 1. I think, again, taking off my orange and brown glasses here, I think that they have the best roster, and they have the best schematics to fit their personnel. So I'm going to take the Browns number 1. Very close here on who's number 2, but I am going to go Baltimore. Very, very, very good football team. Even when they're bad, they're good. I think it's just the culture, everything that they embody. Now, pretty big loss right now with J.K. Dobbins. They did just sign Mark Andrews to a pretty big extension. I think he's pretty good. And then Steelers, I'm going to go 3. Watch out for them. Don't sleep on the Steelers. I hate saying that, of course, but they're also just a very good football team. And I don't think that even when they're bad, they're still good.
Absolutely.
Bengals. Yeah, I'm going to go 4 here. They still have a lot to prove. I don't love that they haven't protected Joe Burrow. It came out that Jackson Carman was not ready to go, offensive tackle or offensive guard, wasn't ready to go out of Clemson, out of shape, didn't quite know the playbook, etc. They trade Billy Price and release Michael Jordan. I just don't love what they're doing. They bring in Jamar Chase. I thought they should have went Penei Sewell. I don't know. They need to protect Joe Burrow, and if they can't do that, then it's just a full reset, I think.
Okay. All right, let's go to, it's so hard to say seeding and who's going to play who in the playoffs. So give me who you think will match up in the championship games. So in the AFC, who's going to play to go to the Super Bowl?
All right. In the AFC, it's tough. Yeah, it is tough to know who's going to play who. I'm going to put the Browns in the AFC championship game against the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with the Browns to win it.
Okay. I like it. I mean, hey, why not? Why not?
I keep my bias there, but I'm pulling for the Browns.
Very good. How about the NFC?
That's really tough one. I do think it's going to be, I think the Packers could do it, but I'm actually going to go with the 49ers and the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, running it back. And I think Tampa Bay will make another Super Bowl appearance. All
right. So we got Tampa and Cleveland playing in LA for the title. You don't have to give me your winner if you don't want to, but if you feel free. All right. I am picking the Browns to get to the AFC championship game. However, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to preface this. I am picking them to lose the championship game because my predictions are usually wrong. So I hope in that sense that proves them to be right to get to the Super Bowl. So I like the Bills Browns prediction though. I think that's good. I think I'm going to go with the Rams and the Packers, with the Packers playing the Browns or playing the Bills, excuse me. But hopefully,
like that. You know what? I like the Browns Bills matchup because it's just two blue collar teams that have kind of been on the struggle bus together for a very, very long time and are finally seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. So, Bills fans, it's tough to root against you, except for when the Browns are playing you. But I do like that a lot.
Amen. Especially week 1, they got the Steelers too.
I know. Let's go Bills on that one.
All right, let's go to a few more things here. Who do you think at the end of the 2021-2022 season wins the NFL MVP?
Speaking of Bills, I'm going to go Josh Allen.
Okay.
I think, he's just really, he's got the players, he's got the personnel, Stephon Diggs. I like their running game. I think that they're putting a lot of good talent around him, and he's just really coming into his own. He's got that stability within his offensive, just in the offensive room in general.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go Josh Allen on that one.
Okay. All right. Very good. How about defensive player of the year?
Myles Garrett.
Love it. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. You already said that. You already answered my question earlier. And then this one might be a tougher one, but how about rookie of the year?
That is tough because, I think the obvious answer is to go quarterback, and you probably lean towards Trevor Lawrence. But when you kind of dig into it, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Buckeye fan. I love Urban Meyer, but it doesn't seem to be that he's in the best position down in Jacksonville. They've got some talent, but that's typically what happens when a quarterback, for number 1 overall goes to a bad team. It's just the way that goes. So I'm going to head in a different direction here. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I think that he is an athletic, dynamic playmaker, and looking at what they have in Atlanta, Julio's out. Matt Ryan's really trying to probably revive a little bit of his career. They've got Calvin Ridley, who's very, very good, but they do need another playmaker, and I think he's going to get a lot of action there. They don't have a great running game. I think Kyle Pitts is going to get a lot of targets, which is going to boost his stats, which in turn will give him the Rookie of the Year.
Very good. Very good. Well, Allie, before I let you go, I got to ask you a couple things. So. Yes. One, you said you went to Capital University.
I did.
What was your degree in?
Business management.
Not communications?
No.
You might be the most well-spoken person that's ever been on this show, and I've had a lot of good guests, so I'm very impressed. So someone sign her up for a national podcast. Tell us one more time about your podcast.
Yes, it's the Here We Go Brownies podcast. You can check us out on Facebook, official Here We Go Brownies, and on Twitter at Go Brownies Live. And you can follow me, of course, Ali_Hysong, where you get some ridiculous jokes and some not so serious things. And of course, a little bit of Browns content here and there. But it's a show by the fans for the fans. It's just, like I said, anytime I get to talk a little bit of Browns, it's a win for me.
And I love it. And I thank you. We're recording this on a Wednesday night for Thursday's show, but you were nice enough to join us, late. It's fairly late on Wednesday night, so I appreciate it. Before you go, you kind of teased it a little bit. Can you end on a one-liner or like a dad joke for us? Because you're good at them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. I'm trying to think. Let me think of a good one. One of my favorites here. I did put this on Twitter, so if you're hearing this again, I am sorry, but it's a really good one. What's the difference between Dubai and Abu Dhabi? People in Dubai, they don't like the Flintstones, but people in Abu Dhabi do.
Well done. Well done.
Cheesy.
I love it. We did a couple months ago, we dedicated a whole Father's Day episode to lame dad jokes. So next year for the lame dad jokes, I'm going to have you back to do that show.
Oh, and I'll be prepared. I'll have several ready to go. I got you.
Very good. Well, Ali, thank you again. And let's check in during the season. And if you ever need anything from us, feel free to reach out and we'll talk soon.
Hey, anytime. It was absolutely fun to be on here. Anytime you need me, I'll be around.
All right. Thanks, Ali. Have a great night.
You as well.
What's up, guys? This is Justin from the 330 Sports Show. I'm joined by a guest, Matt Jergensen. He is from somewhere in Maryland. I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah. I'm actually from Bel Air, Maryland.
Okay.
It's about 30 minutes north of Baltimore. However, I've lived in Maryland my whole life, so I grew up basically on the city-county line. So I'm someone that's very connected to. I am an Orioles fan. I'll admit it. It's not great to say that now. They're rebuilding.
Oh, yeah.
Since the Ravens first came, I don't want to date myself too much. I do remember when the Colts were here. My dad took me to my first Colts game, and it was one of the last Colts games that was in Baltimore. So
okay.
I have that much of a connection to football being in the city. And once we got a team, I was all in. So yeah,
very
I've
cool.
been following them closely since then and been blogging about them since 2007, been doing podcasts. Right now I do a podcast with my good friend Brent Harris, who's a childhood friend, but he actually worked for Comcast Sportsnet for about 20 plus years and was in the locker room and covered the team. So, and we've been friends, like I said, since elementary school. So we do our podcast called Baltimore Blitz, which is done for the last 3 years now. And you can find it on Apple and Spotify and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. So we're excited about the season. I'm excited about the season. I think just as everybody is about getting some football, getting fans in the stands, and trying to get back to something normal.
Absolutely. So, Matt, I was telling you before we came on, we're in Youngstown, so smack in between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So, we know a ton of. We're half Browns, half Steelers here. And I went to Ohio State and kind of same thing down there, but a lot of Bengals fans. But I was telling you, I don't know a whole lot of Ravens fans. So I reached out to you and I'm just so thankful you were able to get back and join us here and, share your knowledge. So
not a problem.
We appreciate you. So, okay, let me just start with this. Obviously, I'm a Browns fan, and our hearts were kind of ripped out way back when with Art Modell moving the team. But we've gotten over it. We got our team back and all that stuff. And obviously, you guys and the Steelers have been the class of the AFC North for going on 2 decades now. So what are your thoughts on? Let me just start with the John Harbaugh era. What are your thoughts on him as a coach and the overall coaching staff?
John Harbaugh, when you go back to this franchise has really only had 3 coaches. You had Ted Marchibroda, who came over, and he had a connection again back to the old Baltimore Colts. So everyone really was kind of accepting of him to come back because he was a familiar face. And then Brian Billick, who took them to eventually a Super Bowl, and then John Harbaugh, and somewhat of an unknown as a special teams coach, and really inherited a veteran team when he came on and was very much a rah-rah college-style coach, much like his brother. And it's really amazing to see how he has evolved over these years into being much more of a player's coach now. He still will occasionally get into his coach speak, and his family obviously very tied in with being coaches over the years. But he really has shown that he's a guy that's been here for the long haul. I know the Steelers are much the same way. They don't like to do a lot of coaching turnover. Mike Tomlin, another guy, right? I mean, so I think that that continue. You can always count on who's going to be at the head, who's going to make those choices. And to be honest, as someone on the outside looking in, I think the Browns finally have their guy. I mean, Kevin Stefanski is showing that he's providing stability. He's created an offense that Baker Mayfield can thrive in. And as a Browns fan, you should be feeling good that maybe finally the carousel stopped. You got a quarterback, you got a coach, and let's see what we can do in the AFC North. So I like the coaching staff. I like John Harbaugh. I hope he stays for a while. He was on a hot seat a couple years ago because he missed the playoffs a couple years, and you're kind of going, well, yeah, you missed it by a game, or you missed it by, so you kind of get used to that, the success of being in the playoffs. They've now made it the last 3 years. So the hope is that they'll be in that contending group trying to knock off Kansas City to hopefully get to a Super Bowl.
No doubt. Yeah, you guys have, as I mentioned, been the class of not just the AFC North, but really the AFC. You've been right up there with the Patriots, right up there with the Steelers, right up there with the Kansas City Chiefs for going on years and years now. And John Harbaugh, to me, I know Bill Belichick probably has the longer career, higher pedestal, but John Harbaugh to me is right there in the top 2, 3, 4 coaches in all of the NFL. I think he's a great. I don't love his brother, not his brother Jim, but
I can understand that.
But John Harbaugh, I think is one of the top guys in all of NFL football. So you guys got a good one down there. Hopefully, as you mentioned, we found our guy in Stefanski. We have maybe sort of hopefully built up to the Baltimore. We've been kind of reaching for you guys for so many years. Hopefully we can finally catch up a little bit. But let me ask you this. What is your, as a fan, but as a knowledgeable fan, what do you think your team's biggest strength and biggest weaknesses are going into the season?
I mean, the biggest strengths are still the run game. And when they made the decision to draft Lamar Jackson, they went all in with it. They said, look, we're not going to make him into something he's not. We're going to build an offense around him. We're going to use his speed and use his running ability as well as his ability to throw the ball. And we're going to build the offense around that. Defense, Don Martindale in the long line of Ravens defensive coaches, very aggressive, very blitz heavy, does a lot of different things, asks his players, particularly linebacking court, to do a lot of different things besides just rush the quarterback. So, I mean, there's the secondary in particular is a tremendous strength. Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, one of the best tandems you'll find, not just in the AFC North, but in the league. And again, in terms of the offense, really the key is, can they throw the football with efficiency? I mean, the year that Lamar Jackson was the MVP, he threw the ball with some great efficiency, threw a good deep ball, and was able to, throw the ball well enough. And I know that's always been the thing, getting to the playoffs is, can he throw to the hashes? Can he throw to the sidelines? Can he pick apart a zone when they sit back and take the middle away from him and try to, load up the box? And they've invested a lot of draft picks and a lot of money into wide receivers, and we'll see. I mean, to me, the biggest addition they've made this year, which I'm really hoping is going to make the change, is T. Martin and Keith Williams is in the coaching staff, pass game specialist and pass game coordinator. Greg Roman does a great job drawing up the running schemes. Some challenges in the pass game, and that's been proven throughout his career. So they made sense, to get some guys in here to bring some fresh ideas in, see what they can do with the guys they have, and see if they can take that next step, because that really is right now for most of us, we would say that's what's holding them back. They lose to the Bills 20-3. Defense did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Offense again stumbled. And it wasn't just Lamar, it was drop passes, bad snaps.
Sure.
You just add it all up. It was just bad football. So
yeah. Well, I mean, one game, it was an obviously very important game, but every now and then you're going to stub your toe, and the Bills are no slouch, to go against. Now you had mentioned the running game being obviously one of the strengths of the team. Last year, they kind of worked Ingram out of the then they were building up Dobbins and some of the backups there. But obviously, J.K. Dobbins, a big loss going into the season. So what are we looking at the running back position for the Baltimore Ravens?
Of course, this brought up the age-old idea of how many preseason games should we have, and why are you playing the starters in the preseason? And of course, players get hurt all the time, and I think it was one series, and in fact, I think it was the first series that the starting group had played together at all. So of course, it ends up J.K. Dobbins is done for the year. It's a big hit. I think the plan was that he really was going to become kind of the feature back, use him a lot more in the pass game. I mean, once they really inserted him into the starting lineup, he had a touchdown a game, and you could sort of see where he was getting comfortable. He talked a lot this season, coming in, like how the game had slowed down. He was seeing the field better, et cetera. And of course that happens. Mm-hmm. So you have Gus Edwards though, as your RB2. And he, again, a guy who came out undrafted several years ago and was a guy that fits in very well with the scheme. And again, the scheme is part of the deal, that you can have a great runner, but you also have runners who, again, he's a good north-south runner, big guy. So he fits in really well with what they try to do. So the idea is we'll move him up one. Now the deal is who takes that second spot. And there's been talk again about Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell or bringing in a vet. I don't think that's going to happen, at least not right now. They like undrafted Tyson Williams, who was on the practice squad last year, showed pretty well in the preseason. Similar running style to Gus Edwards. So they're going to plug him in as kind of the second guy for relief. And of course, I mean, Lamar Jackson's always going to run too. So you got your running game with three there. And I think we'll see how Williams does early on. They're not going to ask a lot of him, but if he can just be able to spell Edwards and keep him fresh, I think they'll be happy with that. I don't think that they're going to be, having this need to go out and go grab a name if they feel like, look, the scheme will kind of give you what you need. We just need somebody to hit the hole and go.
Exactly.
So we'll see what Williams can do this year.
Yeah, with Lamar and with you guys always have a strong offensive line as well. And you had mentioned the scheme. I think you're right on point, Matt. With I think Gus Edwards can fill the bill there too. And running back is, if you're going to lose an important position, I think running back is the easiest one to fill that can be plug and play. So I think Gus Edwards fits the bill there for the Ravens. Now let me ask you this too. Your win total by Vegas in my last look is 11. Now we're playing 17 games this year as opposed to 16. So Vegas has you guys as an 11-6 football team. In your opinion, is that underrated, overrated, or properly rated?
I think that's kind of where I had them. I think I had them around 11 wins, 12 wins, right around that range. Mm-hmm. Looking at the schedule, I mean, I think the AFC North, again, is one of the best divisions in not just the AFC, but in the league.
Sure.
Going back to last year, you send 3 teams to the playoffs. And again, Cincinnati, everyone loves Burrow. And again, the hope is he'll be able to come back and that they're going to be a team on the rise eventually, but they're not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. And, regardless of what, I think every year, the last couple of years, people will want to write the Steelers off because they've been always up there. As long as Tomlin is there, as long as Roethlisberger can stand upright, I think, and as long as they have that defense, they'll be in the mix. They're going to be there. So it'll still be, I think, a 3-team fight throughout the season. I think, but I mean, I think I was on another podcast not too long ago. It was a Cleveland podcast, and I think Cleveland will probably win the division if by a game or two. I do like their roster a little bit more, but it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know a lot of people, myself included, are kind of hoping that maybe the next rivalry, certainly there already is a rivalry with that history you mentioned with Cleveland and Baltimore,
Sure.
but Lamar and Baker and those teams would maybe continue, on the heels of that classic from last season that they engaged in. This just made for good television. Besides, if you weren't a fan on either side, even at the end, somebody had to lose, and it was an exciting game to watch with lots of drama. Those last 5 minutes were you couldn't script it any better in the NFL. I know the execs loved it.
No doubt. Yeah, we burned the tape of game 1 last year.
Oh, sure.
But that late season game was fantastic. And did you guys down in Baltimore ever get word on what happened with Lamar? Did he have to just run to the restroom, or what was the deal with that?
Anytime there is a question brought up to John Harbaugh and Lamar himself, that little smirk kind of comes in. You're like, no, I'm fine. Look, I saw that man walk. You saw that man walk. That's the walk of a man who needs to use the facilities. It's that simple. I mean, that's my opinion, but I mean, I think it will go down as part of the mythology of, some have called it the poop game. But I mean, that's just, how that happens. You got an event and a story, and it could just 10, 15, 20 years from now, people are going to be saying, that's what happened. And so it is one of those little side stories. It's funny.
That's great. That's great. So piggybacking off of Lamar here a little bit, and I've heard other people mention this, but year 4 Lamar, year 4 Baker as well. They were in the same class. Is this the year Lamar is figured out by the NFL? That's a common question, but I need to ask straight to a Baltimore fan. What do you think about that question?
Well, and it's funny because you try to think about how much you look. You're a fan of the Browns, okay? You're going to be critical of them. You're also going to be protective of them. You also value them more than anybody else does. It's, of course, until they leave, and then you're like, well, we didn't want them anyway. So I get that to a degree, and I try to make sure I'm not seeing it through purple tinted sunglasses. But when I hear what people say about him, again, I almost feel like they're caught up in he's got to throw more 300-yard passing games for him to be this great quarterback. And I think as Baltimore fans, we even go back to the Joe Flacco era, where it wasn't just about the stats. It was about winning games.
Right.
And going, look, this is what he brings to the table. This is what he can do. He can do something that not very many people can do at the quarterback position to be a threat. I mean, anyone who watched that Tennessee game, the offense is sputtering. They're down 10-3, and he takes 175 yards to the house, and all of a sudden the game is turned on its head. No one else is doing that. So you have to put that into the equation. He can throw the ball. This idea that he can't throw the ball does get, I know, for some Ravens fans, they get very defensive about it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But there is also times, and he worked this past off season with a footwork coach, with continuing to fine tune those mechanics, because there are times, usually middle of the season, too much flick of the wrist, too much sidearm, too much just kind of playground football in a way, which can be beneficial. You got to take the good with the bad, and then realize sometimes, you're going to make a couple of throws into the turf and throw it away. I would look at he's already got an MVP. He's been to the playoffs all 3 years that he was a quarterback. I know again he came in halfway during that first year, and he did win a playoff game last year, and you can say, well, he pretty much won it.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at the natural progression, he's on track.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us here, yes, if the Ravens go back to the playoffs and we look again, 11, 12 wins, and they go back and maybe win one playoff game and go out, there's going to be people going kind of grumbling. They want to see maybe if you can get to the, AFC Championship. I don't want to necessarily say it's Super Bowl or bust, but I know a lot of people are looking like, well, that should be your next thing. And if he doesn't get there, then again, watching enough football, that still doesn't mean you're a bad quarterback.
Exactly.
There's a lot of good quarterbacks that never got to the Super Bowl, a lot of good quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame that didn't achieve what people are expecting. So the expectations are high as they should be. I like him. I'm happy with him. I like what he's done in the offseason to try to continue to get better. He has a great attitude. All of his teammates love him. A guy that always takes responsibility, doesn't deflect, and is just excited to play football. So I'm happy with him.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, what, 27, 28 teams would die to have the record of the Ravens year in, year out, and a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. There's not many quarterbacks better. You can maybe name 5 or 6, that are better than Lamar Jackson, if that. But like that game against Tennessee, like you said, that play, no one else in the league can make that play. No one. So yeah. I mean, it's a very, very high bar that is set, and the Ravens are right there, so they're going to be right in the hunt for the AFC title. Let me ask you this. Let's switch to the defensive side of the ball. The Ravens have always been known, since way back with Ray Lewis and Suggs, and, you can go on and on and on with that list of linebackers, defensive end. You guys have always been sort of that 3-4 blitzing system that you mentioned. Who will be the dynamic playmaker for the Baltimore Ravens on the defensive side of the ball, outside the defensive backs, which you already listed? So in the front 7.
Well, again, the hope is Patrick Queen, in his second year as the middle linebacker, that he starts to take on that next step. Malik Harrison, again, a Buckeye. I mean, they really like him. He slimmed down a little bit, wants to be a 3-down back. He was already scheduled to kind of be penciled in this year as the starter for LJ Fort. Ford unfortunately got hurt, which kind of hurt special teams, etc. But he's going to be. So the hope is those two guys are going to be a tandem for a long while as playmakers. The issue is, how do they replace like Matthew Judon, who moved on to New England, or they tried to go with Yannick Ngakoue, didn't really work out. I don't think he was a good fit for what they wanted to do. I don't think he's a bad ball player by any means. I just don't think he fit well with what they were trying to do and what they asked their guys to do. The draft, though, they pick up from Penn State, Odafe Owe, and crazy athlete, incredibly fast. The measurables are like way off the chart. I'm still not sure how much they're going to really expect him to be able to do in his rookie year. Because, again, Don Martindale doesn't just say, go get the quarterback. I think that a lot of times you do that for rookies because it helps simplify things and say, look, we'll give you a job and just go ahead and do it. I'd like to see that being the case. It just feels like over the years with what Martindale does, you're not going to see a lot of guys with 10, 11 sacks. You might see 5 or 6 guys with 6 or 7, and you might see some safety blitzes and some corner blitzes and some stuff from all over, but you're not going to have that one guy that you're always worried about. Along the front 7, you have Brandon Williams, who's always been kind of when he's out at the nose tackle, when he's out, all of a sudden teams can run the ball better. And his value has, people were kind of worried when he got this huge contract a couple of years ago, whether they overpaid. And it's proven out that when he's not on the field, it's a big difference in run defense.
Okay.
So there's him. We've got the guys, again, like the linebackers I had talked about, the corners, I mean, and really the secondary in general. I already talked about those 2 guys, but I mean, they just on and on. Chuck Clark, again, a very unheralded guy, but if you're a Baltimore fan, you know all about Chuck Clark. He's the guy with the green dot. I mean, he's the guy that they run everything through. Incredibly smart, hard hitter. Deshaun Elliott, another guy next to him. They got a lot of undrafted guys, young guys. Chris Westry, Geno Stone, another undrafted guy, Darius Washington. They got some guys that can play in that back end. So again, it's also all about the scheme. Just like I said with Greg Roman, that scheme, they can plug in guys, plug and play guys into blitz. I think there's very few teams I look statistically that blitz more than Baltimore does. So they'll have guys to contend with, and if they feel like they can lock down guys in the one-on-one matchups, then it's going to only make them more brazen to throw guys at the quarterback from different angles and make quarterbacks uncomfortable.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's talk a little bit about your opener. You guys open with the Raiders, Monday night game. It is last check. I don't know if the line's moved or not, but the Ravens are a 6-point favorite, at least that last check.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that opening game against the Raiders?
Raiders are kind of a hard team to figure out, right? I mean, like it seems like they seemed like they were on the verge of taking that next step, and they've got John Gruden. I saw the line, what it was. I'm still not totally bought in. I think, again, the Ravens will win that game, but I think it's a close game, though. I mean, you talk about opening up in Las Vegas.
Right.
So, the whole history, obviously, of the Raiders over the last several decades has just been a really interesting one of, jumping from place to place to place, and now to Sin City, and what that's going to look like on opening night.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I mean, I'll be interested to see the energy there and what the fan base is like with this new team. It's been a couple years. They knew they were coming, and now here they are, and the Ravens get to be the ones to open up. So I see the Ravens winning that game, but I see it closer than maybe what some people think. And one thing I know about Vegas, I have been to Vegas once in my life. The odds makers know some things that the rest of us don't.
Exactly.
House wins a lot.
Yeah.
So
they win
I'd
a little
say
bit.
a close game.
Okay.
I'd say a close game.
All right, very good. Yeah, Vegas has started the season hot the last few years and then kind of fizzled out at the end. But I think that'll be a good matchup. But yeah, I like the Ravens to at least win that game. I'm not sure if they'll cover the spread, but I like them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you kind of hinted at your. If you would, I'm just going to have you validate this. I think I have your predictions, but
sure.
Go ahead and rank the AFC North 1 to 4.
I just did this recently, so I have it available. All right, so I have the Bengals at 6-11. I have the Steelers with 8-9. I think they'll be early on in the battle here. I think they'll fade late. I got the Ravens at 12-5 and the Browns at 13-4. I really think at the end, Cleveland and Baltimore are going to be the two, at the end that are pushing for the finish, and that means Cleveland and Baltimore will both end up going to the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how seeding works out. I just think it'll be really close, and I'm looking at, out of those 5 losses, you usually figure you're going to split with guys in the division. You may end up losing a division game you might not have expected to.
Sure.
Just because, how that kind of works out in the type of football. But in general, one thing, again, John Harbaugh-led teams do, they win the games they're supposed to.
Right.
They don't get upset very often. I know we see it sometimes where it just happens on a bad day or injury or whatever. But the losing teams, they normally beat them. They normally take them down. Maybe close, whatever it is, but again, they get the W. So, that's what I'm seeing for this year.
Okay.
I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. I mean, 12-5 is nothing to sneeze at. So that's good. But yeah.
I'm a Browns homer, and I don't even have them at 13-4. So I like.
Really?
That.
What do you? I'll be interested here. What do you have?
You know what? I think the line is set at 10.5 for the Browns, and I do like the over, but I'm more. I think I'm in that 11-6 to 12-5 range. So probably a game or two less than what you have. I think I'm so. I have still a little post-traumatic syndrome from the Browns that they've hurt me a lot over the years as a loyal fan. So I'm not used to being in your shoes of a constant winner. Now on Saturdays with the Buckeyes, I can usually take that to the bank, but on Sundays with the Browns, I'm used to getting hurt a little bit too much. So I'm not ready to go all in on 13-4 or those high records. But
I understand.
I like where your head's at, though. I'm with you on that.
I understand. I understand.
So let me just give me one bold prediction for your Baltimore Ravens this year.
One bold prediction. My bold prediction would have been a week ago that J.K. Dobbins would have had 1,700 total yards. Not now. You can't do that from a hospital bed. Again, I would have gone with Rashad Bateman. I was really excited about coming out of Minnesota that he was going to go. And the early reports from camp were strong hands, mature route runner, like that. They really, I think, got a guy here that's going to supplement the offense and be that guy to get contested catches.
Yep.
And of course, then he goes down with an injury, groin injury. He actually had surgery. I wouldn't expect to see him till week 4. And then, you're kind of like, now you're maybe like, he may not make any kind of impact till about halfway into the season.
Sure.
But my bold predictions have already run out 0-2. I would like to say, on the defensive side, Oweh might surprise and kind of come out big. The biggest thing, and this is not, quote unquote sexy by any means, but the 3rd round draft pick, Ben Cleveland, who is massive out of Georgia.
Yep.
He's going to be the starting guard. He's going to be a starting guard for a while. I think he is a potential Pro Bowler, potential Hall of Famer. If you want me to go bold,
wow,
I'm seeing him in the mold of like another guy from that mid area. Marshall Yonda was a guy out of Iowa who, once you first saw him and you learned, like, there's a great story about him about he just got challenged, to have someone hit him with a taser, and he just kind of took it and just kept going, like, just big country boy, didn't really care, and became this, this guy won't, no doubt when he becomes eligible, he'll be a Hall of Famer. And I think, again, he was a 3rd rounder, 4th rounder. So I'm already in my mindset. If I want to go bold, I like Ben Cleveland. He looks like the mountain from Game of Thrones. If you're a Game of Thrones fan.
Oh yeah,
he's just huge. And he talked the other day, I think, in an interview about eating squirrel. Squirrel's delicious. I'm like, okay, I want this guy blocking for me.
Yes,
high protein. Dude, I think like 6'5", 6'6", 330. Like, yeah, I like this guy. So if I want to go bold, I like Ben Cleveland to do big things in Baltimore.
All right, very good, very good. So Matt coming in hot with the Cleveland takes too, whether it's a Baltimore Ravens player or the Browns at 13-4. But
I will say this too, Justin. So in the summer, I visited Cleveland. I wanted to get out like everybody. I didn't want to go south. I was still a little iffy there. So I'm like, where else can I go? I haven't been before. I've not been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I'm like, get in my car. I'm like, I'm going. And I'm walking around Cleveland. I'm like, Cleveland, I feel at home here. I feel there's very much that same sort of vibe.
Yeah.
I'm a big craft beer guy.
Yeah.
A lot of breweries in Cleveland, much to my excitement. So I was able to walk to a couple of them and sample the where. It was great. I really enjoyed myself. So I think I'm also coming off of like having just a great trip. I'm like, well, I like Cleveland. It's really Now again, this was also in the summertime, so I was able to talk to a lot of people. I might not go back when it's October, November. I might not be welcome, but it was a good time. I really enjoyed the city. I would definitely go back.
If you're ever up in Cleveland, I'll buy you a Great Lakes or hit up one of your breweries up there. So.
I definitely saw Great Lakes, Market Garden. No, I hit a bunch of them, man. They were fantastic.
Well, Matt, we appreciate you, and I've been down to the Inner Harbor. And I've been to the Camden Yards. I've never been to I can't think of what the Ravens Stadium's called.
It's been changed a couple times. Now M&T Bank Stadium. Some call it the Big Crab Cake. But yeah, it's just it's literally you can walk from Camden to M&T. There's actually an area called Ravens Walk, which is pregame, which they're right there.
Okay. All right. And I had one friend that was in college down in Baltimore, and right across the street from where they were living, Edgar Allan Poe's gravesite too, which was one of the cooler experiences too of being down there.
Mm-hmm.
So again, very, very cool. Matt, we can't thank you enough for joining us on short notice, especially. But
no problem.
If you ever need anything from us, reach out. We'd be happy to help out. But if you're ever up in Cleveland, I'll buy you a beer. So
that sounds good. I'll take you up on that. That sounds good.
And good luck to the Ravens, except for those two times, which, by the way, back-to-back games for the Browns, which is a weird schedule anomaly.
Yeah, I saw that too, and that kind of you just sort of shake your head. I mean, I know they do different things to make certain games prime time and for television purposes, whatever. And you're going to put those games back to back?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Either way, I think we can all agree to let's just beat Pittsburgh. Let's just go 4-0 against Pittsburgh.
I figured, again, you're a Browns fan. You're looking at this going, look, at least we could both beat Pittsburgh, kind of get them out of there for a little bit. We'll agree on that. So
yeah, we can agree on that. Well, Matt, cheers, man. Have a great night. And again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.
Thank you. What's up, guys? Justin Coffin for the 330 Sports Show. Joining me for our Steelers breakdown is going to be Dave Spires and Charlie Jennings. They've both been on the show before. Charlie's been on it one other time, and Dave's been a frequent guest, I guess you could say. So we are going to get into the Pittsburgh Steelers and your guys' thoughts. You guys have been fans your entire life, and I want to get the perspective from your side. So let's start overall with the guy that leads the, kind of heads it up with Tomlin. What's your guys' overall thoughts on Mike Tomlin and the rest of the coaching staff? Dave, we'll start with you.
I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I think he does a great job most games getting the guys ready to play. Me being a coach myself, I'm not a big advocate of coaches motivating players. I'm a big advocate of players motivating players. And I think Tomlin does a great job for the bigger games, getting the Steelers ready to play. He gets knocked on a lot for there's always that one game where they blame him where it seems the Steelers drop the ball. Like I said, I think that's on the players more so the coaching staff. I've never done a coaching staff that, especially in the NFL, that looks past an opponent. My biggest fault sometimes with Tomlin is his game management, and I think that's obviously come under review. And he's put certain people in place to help him with his game management. But if you take a look at last year when they lost Big Ben, and I should say 2 years ago when they lost Big Ben, and I think the job that he did just keeping them in contention. And even last year when that defense seemed to get decimated, just keeping them afloat to go 11-0 to start the season. I think that was huge. And Pittsburgh organization does a good job of getting the coaches right and sticking with the coaches. And I like Tomlin. I hope he stays another 10 years.
And hasn't had a losing record, has he?
He has not. He's gone 500, but never had a losing record, and I don't see that happening this year either.
That's amazing in the NFL. Charlie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm content with. I'm certainly a fan of Tomlin. I think that the players play for him. You don't ever have to worry about him doing something stupid or embarrassing, the city or the organization. And most importantly, I think he realized and admitted that coming off the end of last season that they had to change some things. They weren't going to be able to just trot out and hit rewind, and they changed up their. I believe you're going to see a different offense this year. We got a new offensive line coach with a totally different style than what we had, and they needed to change their offense. And I'm happy with Matt Canada. Right, they brought him in advance, probably prepping for this to make this transition. And I'm happy. I've watched Matt Canada at Maryland and at Pitt. He didn't do as well at LSU. But his offense has a modern twist to it. I think he gets what you need to do to be, to not be predictable. He's balanced, and obviously it's just the preseason. But what I've seen thus far, I think the defense is going to be fine, and I think the offense is going to look a lot different and get back to what they need to do, which is run the ball and let Ben hand off and probably do play action, not just sit in shotgun. So coaching staff for the Steelers, I'm good with. I wouldn't change anything.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, Charlie, I'll start back with you on this one. Just give me, your simplified version of this team's biggest strength and biggest weakness.
Simplified version. I think our biggest strength will be the defense again. It's very easy to lose sight of what they had with the way last year finished, but they were just worn down from being on the field all the time, and injuries really got to the linebacking core this year. Assuming that TJ Watt has signed, which I think he did today, and it just hasn't been announced yet, but I think their defense is primed to be top 5 again and carry them as a whole. And I think the offense just needs to do just enough because the special teams is good as well. So the player I'm actually most excited about Joe Schobert on defense. I always liked him. He's very reliable. He's going to be wearing the green dot. He's going to be calling the plays, which will allow Devin Bush to think less and just react and chase the ball. So I think the defense will be our best unit again in 2021.
Okay. Dave, same to you.
Defense wins championships, and Pittsburgh is built on defense. All our best teams in the past have been defense oriented that won championships. I'm most excited about seeing what happens on the right side of the defensive line with Melvin Ingram and Alonzo Highsmith to see, or I should say Alex Highsmith to see who steps up and you're not going to get double team because they were double teaming TJ Watt. So those guys should be running freely, and the pickup of Ingram is going to be huge. The biggest downside on the defense is the health of Tuitt. Tuitt just won an injury report, and we're not exactly sure what's going on. Is it an injury? Is it the death of his brother that's affecting him? But he's not going to be out there on Sunday. That hurts. But we definitely have 8 defensive linemen out there, so the depth is going to be there. And as long as the quarterbacks can uphold and guard their guy for 3 or 4 seconds, the defense is going to do well. And most importantly, if they can get off the field on third down, which has been our biggest problem the last couple of years, 36, 38, not being able to get off the field, that's going to be huge. And the defense is going to have to, win ball games for us still. In terms of our biggest weakness, I think is going still our question mark is going to be an offensive line. We got a very young offensive line. I think they can, Jill. I think they've done a great job of replacing pieces and going out and getting what they need with Trey Turner, with Dan Moore, with Kendrick Green. As long as these guys take opportunity to step up and play, as long as they can gel and keep men upright and open up holes for Najee, I think the offense is going to go back to when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Run the ball first and second down, bend, go out there and make a play if need be on third down. But I don't think the offense is going to be as bad as what they think they are. The public thinks they're going to be. I think with the addition of Najee Harris running the ball, we got wide receivers that can make plays. Mm-hmm. And Ben, he's not done yet. He's not that washed up. If he's limit him to throwing the ball, 20, 25 times a game, 30 times a game instead of 50, we're going to be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, your guys' skill positions are great. And I think even Freiermuth, picking him up is a nice addition. And obviously, we'll get to Najee Harris in a minute. But let's get, I think this is year 18 for Big Ben. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, obviously played basically 7.
You froze again, Justin.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Can you hear me?
He still froze. He might have to rewind back.
All right, let's get back to Big Ben here. So Big Ben, 18th year?
I haven't looked that up, but I know it's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
We were in college when we were in
17.
College when he was at Miami, so
something like that. Yeah, so maybe 17, 18, something along those lines. But either way, he's getting up there. I think he's approaching 40. So what's your guys' overall thoughts on Big Ben? And I guess 2-part question. Thoughts on Big Ben, and will he be the Steelers quarterback next year? So, Charlie, let's go to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to answer those in reverse order. Will he be the quarterback next year? No. I think this truly is it for him. I'm not surprised he came back for one more year with the way that ended. That had to leave a bad taste in your mouth. Like Dave said, I don't think he's completely washed up yet, but I also have come to the realization that he's not 25. I think he needs to go to that kind of game management role. And, maybe if he needs to try to win a game, at least, he's done it before and you could try that. But I think he needs to go to the role of game manager, run the ball, play defense. Steelers special teams is good. So I'm okay with Ben giving it a go. I can't see any scenario where they would pull him mid-year, even if the performance wasn't there. So I think he's going to play, assuming he's healthy, all season. But I think the Steelers have an interest and are really attached to the reclamation project in Dwayne Haskins. And I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be our quarterback next year. Aside from the last game, he looked really good in the preseason. A lot of positive comments about how he's matured. I mean, how could you not? He had nowhere to go but up. But I think Dwayne Haskins will be the quarterback in 22. But I think Ben will play this whole year.
Okay. Dave?
I agree with everything he said. And I think the biggest question mark with Ben going in is can he still throw the deep ball? I think that's been his biggest strength, is throwing the ball up. And he's throwing the ball for grabs a lot with players making plays. And I think Claypool can do that. Can he get the ball downfield, 40, 50 yards? And more importantly, can we get away from throwing the bubble screen? Can we get away from throwing the 2-yard little bubble slant or whatever the heck they're trying to run there? If they do away from that, I think Ben's going to be fine. And once again, being a game manager, a little bit like Phillip Rivers did last year, throw when you have to. Can he go out and throw 40 times a game and we win? Yes. Can he do it in back-to-back weeks? No. If he's doing that, then, it's on the offensive line, not on there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. He may, Ben may say that, but will he actually do it, right? Will he stay with the plays that Matt Kennedy calls, or is he going to audible, whether he has the freedom to or not? Is he going to call the stuff that he likes, or is he going to truly be a game manager and kind of, you feel pressured? There's no shame in taking a sack. That's what I want to see out of Ben early is, hey, if it's not there, throw it away or go down. He does, like we said, he doesn't have to be a hero this year. This team has enough talent everywhere else. He does not have to be the best player on the team or the hero. He just needs to not be the reason they lose.
Okay.
And listen to your wife. I'm sure his wife is saying, "Baby, don't get hurt." He's saying exactly what Charlie said. Go down. Don't be a hero. Just listen to your wife. Go home and see a smile on her face.
Yeah, dude, be Tom Brady or Russell Wilson. Those guys don't ever get sacked. They feel it. If it's not there, they're on the ground. And that's okay. As a fan, if I see that, I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, longevity. And that's it's weird because his strength for so many years was shrugging those guys off and making the play, turning a broken play into something successful. So it's probably a weird change of mindset for him. But
he did it a few times in the preseason, and even watching it, I'm thinking, what are you doing? I'm thinking, don't do that. Even though it worked. It worked. It doesn't look right anymore. And you get, you're holding your breath. I just want him to stay in the offense, make your reads. If it's not there, check it down or go down or throw it away.
Yep.
You don't need to be a hero.
Okay. All right. Fair. All right. Let's get to Najee Harris, because obviously first round draft pick, this kid's a stud. Running backs are not highly valued in the draft. Otherwise, he'd probably go a little higher. So your guys' overall thoughts on Najee Harris and what he's going to bring to the Steelers?
You go first, Dave.
When I was watching the draft and, it's time for Pittsburgh comes up, I stood up. My dog was looking at me like, "Dad, what are you doing?" I'm going, Najee. And, he's a game changer. And he's a bruiser. He gets the hole hard. He has a little bit of breakaway speed. He doesn't have that, you're not going to leave you in the dust, but he can break off a 30, 35-yard run. But more importantly, like Bettis, he can get you 3 to 4 of those tough yards. And I'm ecstatic to have him. I think that was a big need last year, and that was the difference between us, going further in the playoffs. And it's what we needed. We're a hard-nosed team. We're a hard-nosed town. We run the football. We play defense. That's what we do. And the one thing coming out of Pittsburgh is we're going to go back to Steeler football, and that is Steeler football. And all the great teams have had big running backs that lug the ball 25, 30 times a game. And I don't want to see him carry it 30 times. I want to see him carry it 20 times a game. And let's get the other guys in the mix. Snell, McFarland, Balaj, whatever you pronounce his name. Get them another 10 to 15 carries, and let's get it moving. But I couldn't be more excited to have Najee Harris. The big debate was Harris or Etienne from Clemson, and you see what happened to him. Not to say that would happen in Pittsburgh, but we chose right, and we get 6 or 7 years out of him. Run him to the wheels fall off like we did Le'Veon Bell. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he fits. I think he fits the team, fits the culture, fits Matt Canada's offense. So even last year, when you're watching to see how the Steelers are doing and you're watching the college season, I was thinking in the back of my head, like, boy, that would be nice for the Steelers to somehow end up with him, right? A 3-down back and a guy who, by all, intents and purposes, seems like he's a good guy, a good locker room guy. He's really involved in the community. You see him on commercials. He's doing stuff with food banks and homelessness. And I'm excited. I think you're still going to need offensive line play, and you're going to need the defense to not be keying up on you. But I think he adds an immediate respect factor to to the Steelers run game, right? You plug him back there. There isn't a guy on the other team that won't know who Najee Harris is, as opposed to like, Benny Snell or Anthony McFarland. And in the preseason, he's looked great in limited action. I mean, he's made the first guy miss, like Dave said, he's always fallen forward. It's always seemed like 3, 4, 5. And he's caught a few passes where, I mean, I think he had like a 60-yard gain on that one. It was just a little dump off over the middle, and he made 3, 4, 5 guys miss. So I'm excited. I think, I don't subscribe to the running backs aren't important. I think you still need a running game, and I'm really happy that they got him, whether it was a reach or not. I don't think it was. I think he was going to get picked. He was going to get picked in the first round. And I think they wanted him all along, and they weren't, playing coy about that. So
no, they weren't shy about it at all.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very Pittsburgh Steeler pick. It's a guy that is plug and play. He's going to be good right off the bat, and
and it's something that gets you excited, right? As a fan, you're like, you can't wait. Now a running play, you can't wait to see that because he might do something with it.
Sure.
So it adds. I never played football, but I played other sports. I would imagine it gives a shot of life to everybody on that offense, knowing that he's now in the backfield ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, watch that first home game, and Steelers fans are always appreciative of a good draft pick and a good hardworking draft pick. And the first time he carries the ball for a decent run, I guarantee you that stadium is going to explode.
Yeah,
you will hear it on the television.
I think ultimately this draft class, I'm high on the whole draft class. It's funny because all the pundits and all the said how terrible it was and lowly graded, and they reached for Najee. Why did they take Freiermuth? I think every pick they took was a definite need, and also guys that fit what they're trying to do. Freiermuth is blocked well in the preseason, and he's got a different game than Ebron has, and I think it's one that they need. So, and then like Dave said, 3rd round pick is starting. Kendrick Green is starting at center. They've announced that. So they're gonna have two rookies. Right? They're gonna have 2 rookies on their offensive line.
Yeah. You're gonna see 4 rookies out there probably.
Yeah.
First series.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got a lot of skill, and they have a lot of leadership around them. So hopefully, for your guys' sake, I'm not saying I'm not wishing them well, but hopefully for your guys' sake, they do well for you. So let's get to a little bit of the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, we know the strength of the team is going to be the defense. You got Fitzpatrick on the back end. You got a great core of linebackers. You got Watt on the front end. So all 3 levels, you got at least one stud, and not to mention some other very good, solid players. So just overall, I know you talked about it from the lead, but overall thoughts on your expectations of the defense. Dave, let's go with you first.
Top 5 defense in the league. I think the defense is going to keep us in ball games. Like I said, their strength last year, and the reason why, for the most part, the secondary looked so well was their front 4 was able to get pressure. And they blitzed a linebacker or 2. They were able to get pressure. So it makes your secondary look that much better when they don't have to cover for 4 or 5 seconds. They only have 2 to 3. So I love that. I'm still excited about the addition of Fitzpatrick. I think that was a huge get. I think you see an upgrade from Edmonds this year as a contract year, so you better believe he's going to play well. As long as the linebackers stay healthy, we now got depth. I think Spillane subbing in is going to be huge. Bush needs to take that next step forward. He was in for a big year last year and he got hurt. But if he takes that next step forward and doesn't miss a beat, I look for us to still be a top 5 defense in the league, and I think they're gonna win some ball games for us.
Sure.
I think top 5. I think they could push for 1. I mean, they're built very similarly to Tampa's defense, which you have a lasting impression of the Super Bowl, right? Like Justin said, they have a star, not just a Pro Bowler. They have an All-Pro at every level with Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and Minka in the back end. So you've got talent at all 3 phases. I think the strength is their linebackers. Adding Joe Schobert in the middle with Devin Bush, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and the underrated signing was getting Melvin Ingram for very cheap.
That was huge.
To be, an extra body in there. So I think the linebackers are their strength. I don't know, maybe Tampa has better linebackers, but there's not too many teams that have more talent in the middle than the Steelers have. So I would expect their defense to dominate, top 5 at a minimum.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, let's go to let's take a look real quick at their schedule. And you guys, at last check, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but last check I saw the over/under win total was 9, right on 9. It was 8.5. I think it's been bet up to 9. So, obviously you got a tough one week 1, but what's your overall thoughts? And not to mention the AFC North might be the best division in football. So your overall thoughts on the win total, and if you want to give a win-loss prediction for those 17 games, that's up to you. So Charlie, I know you said you got the win-loss total in the bag, so we'll lead off with you.
Yeah, you're right, Justin. The total, the Vegas total was 9. I think that's low. I went through their schedule and just sort of looked at wins and losses and just have a general feel. I think they'll be 11-6. I think they're going to be better than most people think. I think Cleveland deserves and probably should be the betting favorite for the division, which they are. Baltimore, I think their injuries I think losing Dobbins is really going to hurt them. I think they might take a step back in terms of a game or two, but they're not going to go away. They're going to play defense and play special teams. I think the Bengals will be a touch better, but they're not quite ready yet. I don't think they have the stars and the talent that the other 3 teams do in the division. So I think the Steelers are 11-6. I think they'll challenge. I think if you look there, I think that second game against the Browns will mean something in Week 17 still, and I think they could win the division. I wouldn't be shocked if they won the AFC North again.
Okay, Dave.
I'm on the same lines as Charlie, man. We're looking at 10-7, 11-6. It's all about, as I've always said, it's all about momentum. And, I can we go into Buffalo and win? Yes. Will we? Probably not. We have not, unfortunately, played well in Buffalo. But, if you look at, by the time you get to the bye, you're 4-2, 3-3, and then you got some winnable games after that, we're going to be okay. We've got a very, very, very tough schedule. There's no back-to-back easy weeks, but you got a lot of weeks where you got to grind them out. And a tough schedule has never, with Pittsburgh, been a problem. It's when you mark a lot of those games as W's where it's been a problem. So I believe in Coach Tom. I'll have them ready to play, and I definitely think we're going to be a playoff team. I think Baltimore is going to take a step back, unfortunately, with the injuries. It's going to be us and Cleveland battling out. But I think you're looking at definitely a 2-team representation in the AFC playoffs of the AFC North.
Very good. It'll be fun. Obviously, you guys know I'm a Browns fan. I think it's just fun, at least from my perspective. I don't know how you guys feel, to have the Browns-Steelers game actually mean something, especially like Charlie said, that second one could be for playoff positioning or whether a team gets in or not. So it really does mean something.
Yeah, I think it's good, right? Steelers have had a rivalry with Baltimore for a while now, but you're more interested, at least I am, because Cleveland you got the personal connection to it, right? You've got family members, you've got friends that care about it. So I love that the Browns are back. I think that's fair to say, and that I think these two are set up to battle for a while, and I love it.
No doubt. Dave, what's your thoughts on the Browns Steelers? Now, you guys have beat the hell out of us for like 2 decades. So what's your thoughts on it?
It's for the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, we've been your rival. You have not been ours.
Correct.
It was the Bengals for a time, then it really became the Ravens. It's actually, at least from my perspective, it's personal now. I mean, and a lot of that stems from being in Youngstown, but also a lot of the fact that when you guys play us, it's your Super Bowl. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's been times where you could look at it and say, if you guys won 2 games, but you won 2 games, and those games were the Steelers, and you guys went, at the time 2-14, you guys were ecstatic.
Yeah.
So in the past, the games meant a lot more to you guys than it has to us. But you guys beat us in the playoffs last year, and beating us in last game of the regular season. You have our attention, and it's going to be a very, 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 very bitter rivalry again, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be like the days of old, and I'm excited for it. And I think we split this year. Don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be very, very intense, and they mean something. It is nice to have the rivalry back.
That's good.
And,
Yeah.
and if the Browns never won a Super Bowl, I wouldn't be sad about it.
And that's fair. If the Steelers, what do you guys have? 6? You guys have 6 titles? 7?
Six.
How many we got. Exactly how many we have.
Uh,
They don't call it Sixburg for nothing.
well, I'm happy with when it's staying at 6 for the rest of our days. So, no, but it's great to have that game. At least from my perspective, means something. And Dave, you and I are Buckeye fans, and it's kind of that way with Ohio State. They just beat up Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan has that overall win total still on the Buckeyes. So
that game's not even fun. It's gonna be a lot. I think you have a lot of parties this year for the game. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of excitement. I mean, I still look back at the playoff game that I was mad that they put the game on at 8:00 at night, and then I'm like, I sit around all day without having any cocktails, and the game was over before I even poured one. So I'm ready this year.
no doubt. All right, let me just let me get you guys out of here on a few more questions. So let's do this. Rank the AFC North 1 to 4. Charlie, let's go with you.
I'll say Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati.
Dave?
Same.
I think
Okay.
that's the way it should be going into the season.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have you rank this as well. Rank the AFC North quarterbacks 1 to 4.
I'm going to go Lamar, Joe Burrow, Baker, Ben.
Interesting. Okay. Charlie?
I would say Dwayne Haskins 1, probably Baker Mayfield 2, Lamar Jackson 3, Joe Burrow 4, Ben 5.
Interesting. Okay. So you guys think it's got to be the rest of the offense that picks up the slack for Ben this year?
Yeah.
I do, but also, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's horrible.
Right.
I just think, if I had my choice of quarterbacks for this year, it would be toss-up between, he'd be 3rd or 4th between him and Baker, in my opinion. I'd take Lamar, and I would take Burrow over both those guys. And I know Lamar doesn't throw the ball traditionally that well, but I think the dual threat that he has, if he put some weapons around, I think it'd be okay.
I agree with you guys on Burrow too. I think he's kind of facing the same thing. If you can keep him upright, he can put up the numbers. Give me one under the radar player that maybe Browns or Bengals or Ravens fans might not be aware of that you think could make an impact for the Steelers.
I'm going to say McFarland.
Okay.
Anthony McFarland. He's going to spell Najee, but he's going to be maybe a 3rd down back a little bit for him. But he's got some breakaway speed. They used him a little bit last year, but I like what I saw from him in the preseason, running the ball and more importantly, catching the ball. So I think that's my guy.
Okay.
I think the name that jumps on the scene in the division and nationally will be Alex Highsmith. I think he's now got a year of experience. He didn't even play a lot in college, so he was pretty raw coming in, and he got thrust into the season there when Bud Dupree tore his ACL, and he kind of had a little bit of an acclimation, a few games, but he, from everything I read and hear, I think he's going to step in and fill that role and probably have double-digit sacks. He's probably going to be, on the highlight reels and jump off the page. And a lot of people are going to say, who is that guy? Because they haven't heard of him before.
All right. Good name drops. All right. Last question for you guys. At the end of the day, at the end of the season, who are we looking at? Now, you can give me the obvious names, or you can go maybe someone a little bit down the line, but give me the offensive MVP and the defensive MVP for the Steelers. Dave, I'll tell you what, let's go offense first. Dave, we'll start with you.
Najee Harris. I just think he's going to be a difference maker. He's going to be a candidate for the Rookie of the Year, but he'll be there. He'll definitely be their MVP this year. If not, it could be a long year. We need him to be their MVP.
Okay. Charlie, offense?
I'm going to say Najee too. Will he be the absolute best player on the offense? That's hard to tell, but he's going to be the piece that wasn't there before, and he's going to be the one that, if their offense gets back to being good again, he's going to get probably more pats on the back than he may even deserve on it. So I think he'll be the guy that he could probably end up winning their offensive player of the year.
Well, and you can see it like everybody nationally. I mean, if you play fantasy football, he's going anywhere between 8 and 15, overall. So people are thinking highly of him, whether they're Steeler fans or just any NFL fans. Same question, defensive MVP this year. We all know the main dude, but it could be him, could not be. So, Charlie, how about you?
Yeah, to give you an answer that's not TJ Watt. I think Devin Bush, he was really on a trajectory where he was a tackling machine. He was covering the tight ends, down the field, which is what you need in today's NFL. So, and, luckily there's never a good time to tear your ACL, but it was early enough in the season to where he's not rushing back and he appears ready to go. And I think it might free him up to just use his athletic ability and, react a little bit more if he doesn't have to wear the communication dot and call the plays and call the audibles on defense. He doesn't have to worry about that. He can just lock in. So I think getting Schobert is big. And I think Devin Bush is going to be their defensive MVP this year.
Okay. Dave, same question to you.
We mentioned the first line of defense. We mentioned the second line of defense. I'm going to go with the third line of defense and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think our defense is at its best when he's out there making plays, whether it's sneaking up and getting the sack or, more importantly, getting an interception and holding down that defense back there. So if he can be, very Troy Polamalu-like, I think that's going to be a huge asset for us and make sure that nobody gets deep. But more importantly, coming out to the line of scrimmage and making a play is going to be huge. So I think we mentioned 3 great defensive players. I think all 3 of those guys are viable candidates to be defensive player of the year for the team. And I'll be surprised if there's anybody but one of those 3.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, again, guys, I appreciate you sharing the knowledge with us on the Steelers. I'm not rooting for you, but I do respect them. So we'll see how this all turns out. Dave has them 10-7 or 11-6, and Charlie has them 11-6. So if you trust these guys, bet the over.
Where do you have them?
I have them right. I have them 9-8 or 10-6 or 10-7.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 9-8, and so I like the over. I think it's a safe bet. The Steelers still scare the shit out of me. So,
I can't see any way they're just 9-8. I mean, even in that year when Ben got hurt and they were playing whoever at quarterback, they were still better than that. So with their defense and special teams and just kind of pedigree, I think there's no way they don't win at least 10 games, All
right, gentlemen. Well, thank you again.
Now we're on tape and we'll see how it goes.
All right. Hey, guys, Justin Coffin back with the 330 Sports Show. We are going to dive into the Cincinnati Bengals of the AFC North right now. We're doing our AFC previews. So we're going to get into, obviously, the Browns, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers. So Jason Dewicke is our guest. He joins us. He's Jason, you're in Columbus currently right now.
That's right.
Very good. So, Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some Bengals preview here.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, hence the affiliation and the love for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's been a very tough couple of decades, to say the least. But definitely a diehard fan. Born and raised, I said, in Dayton. Moved to Columbus to attend Ohio State for undergraduate school, and stayed in Columbus thereafter. Went to Capital Law, and thereafter have practiced employment law for about 20 years now.
Wow.
So, but have always been a big sports fan. Huge college basketball fan, and of course the NFL and Major League Baseball. Big Cincinnati Reds fan, and really have really gotten into the DFS as of late as well. The daily fantasy sports, which when your team's not performing so well, it gives you some outlet to still have interest in the season and in games.
Sure.
When your team's many games out and is effectively it has a season ending. So
Absolutely. Well, very good. Well, we have our Buckeyes obviously on coming up tomorrow night, but we have the Buckeyes that we can always rely on. But you and I have been tortured as a Bengals/Browns fan. Me over the last however many years you want to say. The Browns finally started to get back on track last year and got that playoff win. And the Bengals, you can see the beginnings of what they want to build, especially with Joe Burrow. But I'm going to let you kind of talk about what you think about this. But let's start with the man in charge. Let's start with Zach Taylor and your thoughts on him and I guess the coaching staff in general.
Right. Well, it's hard to be too excited about a 6-25-1 record. 6 wins over 2 years is tough to get excited about.
Sure.
This is the decisive year for Zach Taylor. I think he now has the roster in place that he wants. Hopefully he'll get a full season from Burrow. And I have just internally wanted to reserve judgment on Taylor until he had a roster in place, had his quarterback for a full season, and this is it. I mean, we're going to know about Zach Taylor, I think, one way or the other this year. And I mean, if we're looking at another 3, 4, 5 win season, he's probably not the man. He's probably not the man. We know now that at least possibly he was very much responsible for Jared Goff's big season in LA. He was the quarterback's coach there during Goff's biggest and best year with the Rams, and Goff has really regressed thereafter to the point where he just recently got traded to the Lions in that big Matthew Stafford trade. So yeah, what was Taylor responsible for Goff's success? Who knows? But there definitely seems to be some correlation there.
Okay. All right. Very good. So you guys have. Let's just start with the opener. Let's just start with that, and then we'll build on the team. So you have former coach Mike Zimmer, who leads, I believe Mike Zimmer was the DC with the Bengals.
That's right.
Obviously moved on to the Vikings as their head coach. And the Vikings are a 3.5 point favorite, a very good team last year, 3.5 point favorite against you guys. What's your thoughts on that opening week game with the Vikings?
I could be completely wrong on this, but I have a sense that the shortened preseason, the head coach's decisions to play starters extremely little during the preseason. I think we're going to see high scoring week 1 games. Okay. I really do. I like the over in this game. I actually think the Bengals win this one straight up. Is that a little bit of a homer? Perhaps, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I built a model primarily for DFS purposes to develop player projections. So it wasn't built to project game scores for purposes of being the Vegas line. But nevertheless, it incorporates the game projections and projecting the player projections. I have this 34-31 Cincinnati,
Wow.
so which that would soar over the 48 projected total. Now, Vegas is rarely that wrong, so I would take that with a big grain of salt. When you're that far off of the Vegas line, you might want to go double check your inputs and your data. But my mile's in the infancy stages, but I've got a 34-31 Cincinnati. So we shall see. I think both teams are going to move the ball up and down the field.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. You're going full score and everything. 34-31 Bengals. And obviously, like you said, the over is 48, so well over. So people that listen to this that have a gambling ear might take that into consideration from a Bengals fan. I like that. Two high-powered offenses too.
Just don't provide my email address or phone number to
No, we'll keep it. That's yeah. Like you said, with a grain of salt.
Right. Maybe a little bit more than a grain.
With your Bengals knowledge, tell us what you think, in your opinion, what the team's biggest strength is for the 2021 season and what the team's biggest weakness is.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily think it takes a whole lot of insights to kind of pinpoint those areas. I think even most outsiders can see that the Bengals offensive line is the primary weakness, especially the interior of that line. The tackles are competent. You've got a decent pair on the outside. Well, I think we'll talk about the offensive line a little bit more in detail in a moment, but we've got decent tackles. The guards and center are very, very questionable. The strength appears to be the offensive skill positions, the quarterback, Mixon, the running back, and then of course the trio of wide receivers. I think even most outsiders would just pinpoint those two areas. I would also suggest that the linebacking core is probably a weakness of the team. It just gets exposed a lot less than the offensive line, especially when your first round number one overall draft pick is getting leveled consistently. That obviously it exposes and demonstrates the offensive line's weakness more so than the linebacker core. So offensive line, linebackers, two primary weaknesses.
So, going back to the draft, you guys take Ja'Marr Chase, which obviously big upgrade in the wide receiver room with Boyd and Higgins. So you guys have a loaded skill position. Now, I know Ja'Marr Chase has gotten some heat in the preseason for a lot of drops.
Yes.
But what's your thoughts on Ja'Marr Chase thus far?
I was team Penei Sewell. I really wanted the Bengals to go get Sewell. I think you build your teams inside out, and I really thought they should have fortified the offensive line. With that said, and I'm not a devout college football follower. Now I follow, of course, Ohio State, but I can't say I watched all the LSU games a couple years ago and saw Burrow and Chase. But what I did see last year, and it's very apropos because we're talking about the Vikings a little bit, is just how impressive Justin Jefferson was in his rookie year with Minnesota last year. Sure. And I mean, this guy just was truly impressive, just so smooth. And now what I've seen, read, now gone back and looked at, especially after the Bengals drafted Chase was putting up better numbers. He was the number one target on that just incredible LSU offense there a couple years ago. Sure. And if he approaches what Justin Jefferson did last year for the Vikings, then it's going to be tough to say that they went the wrong direction. So far, not so good, though. As you said, we've had a case of the yips, as they call them, and hopefully that'll get straightened out soon. And I think what we're seeing is that those players, those collegians that took off last year are struggling. And no matter how talented you are, taking off and not playing football for 2 years and then trying to advance to the NFL level and kind of adjust to that speed element is difficult, and Sewell is really struggling in Detroit, as I understand. So we'll give these guys time before we start passing judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a great point about sitting out last year with the COVID year and stuff like that. So yeah, he's going to need some time to bake a little bit in the oven. But him and Burrow, had that prior connection. So hopefully, for your guys' sake, that can start clicking. Now, I put this on here. In your opinion, does Joe Burrow play all 17 games this year, or with the offensive line, sort of like you said, a couple capable tackles, but like maybe struggle in the middle there? Does Burrow make it through the season unscathed or healthy?
Sports Information Solutions conducted what's known as an injury risk model this past offseason. And it accounts for age, usage, playing style, and body type. And they calculate, they try to quantify the percent chance that an individual, each player misses at least one game throughout the season.
Sure.
They identified Joe Burrow as the 10th greatest risk of injury amongst starting quarterbacks, at 11%. So they assessed an 11% chance that Burrow misses one or more games.
Okay.
To quantify it, I'd say there's 11% chance he misses at least one game.
Okay.
That would be if he has to miss time, let's hope it's just one game if you're a Bengals fan. Now, interestingly, I saw that the same injury risk model identified the three most likely starting quarterbacks to be injured as number 3, Jimmy Garoppolo, number 2, Dak Prescott, okay, and number 1, and probably not surprisingly at all if you think about it, is Kyler Murray of the Cardinals with this propensity to run and just the number of plays the Cardinals get off. He's going to get that many more opportunities. So, but a really interesting model. As far as I know, the data is only being released to NFL clients right now. But the gentleman that runs the site was kind enough to pass on a couple tidbits for this particular podcast.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Some inside information there. I'm a little bit surprised Lamar Jackson wasn't in that top 3, but I'm sure he's in that top 10 group.
I would suspect.
But very, very, very interesting. So let's real quick touch on the offensive line again. You had mentioned the outside tackles are capable. I believe you got, in the names, I apologize, I don't have them written down, but you have a very capable left tackle from Alabama who was a solid first rounder, I believe, 2 years ago, that just can't quite stay healthy as well. Was that the situation with him?
Well, he missed the entire first season. So last year was essentially, and we're talking about Jonah Williams, the number 1
Jonah
selection,
Williams, yes,
first round pick out of Alabama. He had a pretty solid first season. He's a much more competent pass blocker than run blocker. Pro Football Focus rated him the number 44th offensive tackle last year. So that's not real great, considering if you look at the 32 teams, two starting tackles per team, you're looking at 64, and he's rated number 44. So not horrible, but certainly not elite. He definitely needs to improve in the run blocking. On the opposite side, the Bengals just signed Riley Reef, as free agent from the aforementioned Minnesota Vikings, and again, Reef is much more competent pass blocker than run blocker. At least that's what the Pro Football Focus data reflected last year. He ranked him as the 38th best top tackle last year. But the offensive line, while certainly, or the tackles, while certainly not elite, I think are capable. It's really that interior where you start running into some questions. Trey Hopkins, the center, is coming off a torn ACL from week 17. So there was a big question as to whether or not he'd be healthy and ready to go to begin this season, but he's made it back. He was the 18th rated center last year by Pro Football Focus rating system. And when healthy, he's capable, but coming off that torn ACL, there's certain questions. But it's really the guards that are really questionable. Of course, the Bengals used their second round selection on Clemson's Jackson Carman, originally from Cincinnati, who spurred the Ohio State Buckeyes and broke some hearts and attended Clemson. But we've got former free agent Quentin Spain at left guard. We acquired him from Buffalo a couple years ago. He's actually the one starting offensive lineman who is stronger against the run, stronger run blocker than he is a pass blocker.
Okay.
He was rated the 56th top tackle. Again, have approximately 64 starters last year, so near the bottom. And then the right guard, Xavier Suafilo, former free agent from Dallas. I think he's been around the block, but he also was injured for good portions of last season with an ankle. He's coming back, and he was ultimately rated, I think, the 52nd best tackle by Pro Football Focus metrics last year. So certainly not in the position of the Cleveland Browns, which has an offensive line littered with high-ranking PFF players. So that's our struggle. That's the team's downfall right now.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a real quick follow-up question. Billy Price, what happened with him?
That's real interesting. Injuries. I think injuries really affected Billy Price. Interestingly enough, I see a chiropractor who actually did some work on Billy Price at one point in his career, and we've talked about Billy from time to time. And it was well, what's going on? This guy was a stud at Ohio State, and why didn't that translate to the NFL? And without knowing all the details, my chiropractor seems to think that it was just injury related, and he just could never, stay healthy.
Okay.
And then probably what I'm going to presume happened, the injuries probably affected his play, which then ultimately affected his confidence. I don't think he ever got that back. Maybe he'll get that back with the New York Giants. The Bengals, as you now know, I think recently traded Price for I think it was BJ Hill, the interior defensive lineman here over last week.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Great insight. I love all this insight you're bringing. So let's look at this. So the Bengals win total right now is set at least by my last check, and correct me if I'm wrong, was at 6.5. Do you think that is underrated, overrated, or properly rated?
Properly rated.
Okay.
I put the teams, it's about 6. Remember, we do have 17 games this year. And so we got to consider that. I forget that from time to time myself. I was thinking about 7 and 9 originally. And then I remember, there's that 17th game. So 7 and 10, I thought was kind of their most optimistic peak. Maybe you get to 8 and 8 if things fall just right. But I think 6 wins is fairly accurate. Maybe very accurate. I would not have any confidence in betting the under or over team total on the wins.
Okay. Very good. Let's talk about some of these skill positions. So let's start with the receivers. Tell me what your expectation of this receiving core is. Well,
assuming that we get a healthy Joe Burrow for most of the season, I think that, again, that's the strength of this team, the offensive skilled position players. The trio of Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase should present a lot of problems. Again, I think let's presume that Chase gets these yips rectified here soon, and maybe he'll do that once the games kick in for real. But Chase should provide Burrow with that much needed deep threat that was missing last year. Joe Burrow was one of the most, I think I saw an article that he was rated as had the top season in Pro Football Focus history. And Pro Football Focus also examines the collegiate level. And looking at his final season at LSU, he had the highest percentage of completed deep passes in history that Pro Football Focus looked at, and last year he was near the bottom in deep throw completion percentage, And I think a big part of that was AJ Green had lost a couple steps. He had his connections with AJ Green were putrid. And even T. Higgins, he struggled to connect with on deep throws. We're hoping as Bengals fans that Chase is that answer, and that that he can provide that deep threat, which will of course loosen up the defense for Higgins and Boyd underneath.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, and Higgins and Boyd are freakishly athletic as well. Like they might not have that deep threat speed, but they are solid receivers in this in the NFL. So put that trio right up there with just about any trio in the NFL.
I think that's fair. Again, assuming we get Chase at what he's supposed to be.
Sure, that's a good point. Yeah, and very young guys. They are very Taj Boyd, the veteran in the room, but yeah, you got two really younger guys in Higgins and Chase there. So let's talk about Joe Mixon and the running backs a little bit. So you know what? I don't even know your depth outside of Joe Mixon. So tell us a little bit about what to expect from Mixon and the rest of the running back crew.
Right. Well, the so-called featured backs are in decline in the NFL. They're the days of the back playing all three downs is really declining, and there's just a handful of teams that are using that quote unquote feature back any longer. But the Bengals are one of them. Joe Mixon will be on the field for all three downs. He made Giovanni Bernard expendable now with Tampa. But Joe Mixon's the guy, and if he doesn't lead the team in rushing, we've got real problems. Shamaje Perine, former Oklahoma Sooner, I think by way of the Washington Redskins, graded out pretty well himself last year, but he's not a three-down back. He doesn't provide the receiving threat. Now, really interesting X factor on this team might be Chris Evans, the late round draft selection from Michigan.
Okay.
He was very underutilized up in Ann Arbor, and he has really demonstrated a proficiency for pass catching. He caught a touchdown against the Dolphins, I believe, over the weekend, and I saw a recent article that he might be the top rookie running back pass receiver this year. Now, again, that would mean that he gets on the field considerably more than what we're expecting, because again, Mixon's a three-down back. But I think if you're looking for some underrated Bengal, you keep an eye on Chris Evans.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, and I remember him very highly touted at Michigan, but again, didn't quite make the impact on the field that you might thought. We have one of those guys, Donovan Peoples-Jones, was the number one receiver coming into college. Didn't do a whole lot in Michigan, or really underperformed, but now the Browns think very highly of him. So hopefully Chris Evans can do the same thing for you guys. Let's switch now. We've talked about the O-line. We'll talk a little bit about Burrow too, a little bit more about Burrow before we go. But we've talked about the running backs. We've talked about the wide receivers. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. You guys obviously lost a big piece on the defensive end, who unfortunately now is hurt for his new team. But who's going to lead this team in sacks, or who's going to be the big playmaker? I know you got a guy, which I'm sure you're going to mention, from free agency from New Orleans, but why don't you tell me who you think will be either the leading tackler or leading sack guy for the Bengals this year?
Yeah, well, the leading sacker better be Trey Hendrickson, the free agent acquisition from New Orleans, who I think they overpaid for after losing the Carl Lawson, who you referred to earlier. Lawson was really coming into his own, and it was really sad as a Bengals fan to see him leave via free agency. And it is very unfortunate to see him. He ruptured his Achilles early on with the Jets in training camp there, but. It's got to be Trey Hendrickson who leads the team in sacks. There just isn't that dynamic pass rusher on this team. Lawson was it, and he was really coming into his own. I expected him to blossom in New York before the Achilles rupture, but the Bengals also drafted a Joseph Osai out of Texas, who looked to be really, really promising in the preseason. had an unbelievable first game. I think got sacked Tom Brady on the opening series against the Buccaneers, but unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury himself. So that was really really depressing as a Bengals fan to see that, especially after he had flashed some real pass rushing capabilities in early opportunities. So we've got some problems rushing the passer, and that's another potential weakness for this team. I don't know much about Trey Hendrickson to be honest, but he's brought in here to do one thing, and that's apply pressure.
Okay. You guys picked up one of our guys, one of the Browns this past offseason, Larry Ogunjobi. He was a guy I was sad to lose. I thought he was a really good defensive tackle, run stuffer, would occasionally get to the quarterback. So I think that's going to be a nice pickup for you guys on that defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not all that familiar with his game yet. I'm looking at rosters earlier through the preseason. The one, I think the Browns have an extremely complete roster. The one potential deficiency is the interior of that defensive line.
Sure.
And I wonder, well, why didn't they do more to try to keep him to shore that up? Who knows? I'm really interested to see how he works with DJ Reader, who the Bengals picked up last year via free agency from, I believe, the Texans. How that pair works in combination, but I don't think either of those two are big high pressure guys. I don't think we're certainly not talking about them in the same sentence as Aaron Donald. Not that you really can talk to place too many people in the same sentence as Aaron Donald, but I don't think they are known for applying too much pressure. I'm more of a run stuffers. But who knows? We'll see.
Okay. Well, it's AFC North is a very heavy run division, especially with the Browns now and the Ravens. So that could be to their benefit there. Now we've talked about the front four. Let's talk about the back seven a little bit. Linebacker, secondary. What do you see from those groups?
The Bengals run two linebackers as a base defense, as many teams now. They'll play their nickel corner. Mike Hilton, they got acquired from Pittsburgh, and then they got the kid Awuzie, Chidobe Awuzie, I think is how you pronounce his name, from Dallas, and Trey Waynes, who they acquired from, again, the Minnesota Vikings a couple years ago. Was injured most of last year and injured again. He's going to probably miss the first game against Minnesota. So from all accounts, the secondary was extremely impressive throughout the entire camp. That was kind of the highlight from what I had read from all reports was that secondary was outperforming expectations and really shutting down the passing game, the supposed high elite passing game the Bengals were supposed to throw out there. So that was interesting. Of course, the safety pair, as Ohioans know, Buckeye fans know, we know Von Bell, former New Orleans Saint, who anchors the strong safety role for Cincinnati, and the player that those unfamiliar with the team might not know very well, but I think you should, is Jesse Bates, the free safety. Okay. He was the number one rated safety by Pro Football Focus metrics last year. And he led the team in both interceptions and tackles. So he is an up and comer. He's by far, now that there's no Geno Atkins, now that there's no Carl Lawson, he's by far the team's top defensive player.
He's the dude on defense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Who's your underrated or under the radar player? And it very well could be Jesse Bates, but Pro Football Focus, like you said, has him rated so highly. Who is your underrated player for the Bengals that maybe we don't, the outside of Cincinnati fan might not be familiar with? Who could be someone that steps up in the spotlight this year?
Yeah, Bates definitely, I think, although the metrics show him as highly rated, I don't think he has got the deserved national praise. primarily because he plays in Cincinnati. So I think if you're talking about outsiders, he would certainly be somebody to keep an eye on. And then I mentioned Chris Evans. Depending on what develops, again, mix an injury, and all of a sudden, I think Chris Evans gets a substantial amount of playing time. I think he's another guy who might be flying under the radar. Tyler Boyd. Jamar Chase is going to get all the pub. He and Burrow as former collegiate teammates. T. Higgins is still young and had led the team in receiving yards last year. He gets a lot of publicity or acknowledgement, but don't sleep on Tyler Boyd. A very adept route runner, and he seemed to have a pretty good rapport with Burrow before Joe's injury last year. So that trio, I think. Should at least be capable if not known by outsiders so much.
Okay. If you had to pick one group in that trio, Boyd, Higgins, or Chase, that's going to lead the team in receiving yards this year, which one of those three are you picking?
Wow, in yards. I'd definitely go with Boyd in receptions. Wow, I hope it's Chase, but I'm gonna say I would say Higgins.
Okay.
I'm gonna, as a Bengals fan, I think we have to hope it's Chase because we want him to be that big play threat, that big play guy. But I think Higgins is further along right now. So pull me down for T. Higgins to lead the team in receiving yards.
Okay, all right. So you're looking at Tyler Boyd with receptions, T. Higgins with yards, but hopefully, for your sake, it's Jamar Chase.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. As a Bengals fan, I'm going to get you out of here in a couple minutes, but
sure.
As a Bengals fan, what is your number one concern this year? And it could be on somebody thing we already touched on, but what's your number one concern with the Bengals this year?
Easily the interior of the offensive line.
Okay.
Yeah, and keeping Burrow upright. No Joe Burrow, no chance, right? So. Keeping him upright in that interior of the offensive line. That's the biggest concern. I mean, I mentioned applying pass rush, getting a consistent pass rush, finding that's important. But I mean, without your starting quarterback, without Burrow getting time to survey the field and to feel comfortable back there and not feel as if he's having to look over his shoulder, so to speak, on every pass attempt. That's it. I mean, again, from early reports in training camp, he was slow to get back to form, and I'm sure some of that was psychological, if not most of it. But we got to keep him upright.
Absolutely. All right, and as obviously you're a Bengals fan. I'm a Browns fan. I had my guest, Matt, that was on for the Ravens side of things. I had him rank the AFC North. So I'm going to ask you the same thing. Go ahead and rank the AFC North teams 1 to 4.
Yeah. I think Cleveland has perhaps the most complete roster, not just in the division, but the NFL. If you go through by position group, through the Pro Football Focus metrics, and you kind of break that in by position group, that might be the most complete roster in the NFL. I think they win 14 games. I see a 14-3 season is very, very possible. And not too far behind are the Ravens. Put me down for 12-5 for Baltimore. That is a tough time, a very tough team, to prepare for, just because of their physical running style. It's a team that Cincinnati does not match up well with at all. The Bengals traditionally, at least recently, have struggled against the real physical teams, the San Franciscos, the Baltimores. That team presents a problem. Lamar Jackson's development as a passer in the pocket. I mean, that's the key. If he takes a step, if he advances his game, that team becomes a big problem. Now, losing Dobbins certainly hurts, but I think the Ravens have the second best roster in the division. It kills me to say it because I hate the Steelers, but I think Pittsburgh is probably more complete team than Cincinnati right now. The defense has the potential to be dominant. The offensive line has even probably more concerns than Cincinnati's.
Yep.
But they do have Ben, and as long as they still have Ben, I think they have a chance to move the ball offensively. And then I think the Bengals, as I said, I think the Bengals, the 6.5 win total is about right. You put the Bengals down at 6-11, you give the Steelers 8 or 9 wins. So that would be the order I would rank the division.
Okay. All right. Very good. Great analysis, Jason. And I, again, can't thank you enough for joining us. And really appreciate your insight. I love the numbers and the insight that you brought. So let me get you out on this, on this final question. Zach Taylor, yes or no, will he be the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals in 2022?
That's the question. Well, I tell you what, it reverts probably back to one of the questions you asked me earlier about how many games Joe Burrow plays this season. If Joe Burrow plays a full season, I think we see Zach Taylor next year.
Okay.
If not, I think the Bengals have to move on. Is that fair? Probably not. But if we're not seeing Burrow, that means we got probably something's happening on the offensive line. And I don't know how much influence Zach Taylor had in going Chase over Sewell. But if we lose Burrow for any extended amount of time for a second straight season, I think that decision to go Chase over Sewell is going to be second guessed for many years to come. And I don't know if Taylor survives beyond this season if that happens. But you get Burrow a full season, maybe Zach Taylor is the quarterback whisperer, maybe not, but we shall see. And this is definitely going to be the year, the decisive season for Mr. Taylor.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, Jason, thank you again so much. And maybe we'll check in with you during the season and get some insights on Browns Bengals when they match up.
I would love that. Justin, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that the 330 Sports Show is a Youngstown studio production. You can find all of our previous broadcasts on the Youngstown Studio Network. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We stream all of our videos live or on demand through Facebook and YouTube. So just search Youngstown Studio. You'll be able to find all of my shows as well as all the other shows on our network. You can also follow my show at 330 Sports Show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We appreciate you guys listening and continue to follow us and share the word. That is how we grow. And we, again, appreciate you guys listening.
All right.
Hey guys, Justin Coffin for the 330 Sports Show. We're doing our Tailgate Thursday with Steve Leslie. Steve's nice enough to join us each and every Thursday on the show. We're doing our recording Wednesday night. So Steve's going to give us a breakdown of his week 3 top performers, his top 4 or his week 4 top matchups, and some undefeated teams here. So Steve, obviously with YSN, does a great job, and we appreciate him. Steve, thanks again for taking the time a little later than we anticipated on a Wednesday night. So again, thanks, Steve.
No, my pleasure. It's all good. The later, the better for me. And I can't believe that you said week 4. That is hard to believe that high school is getting into week 4. Obviously, college is started up and the pros start tomorrow. So it's pretty much in full force. Another big weekend for us last week, some good games, some surprises, and another big week for us at YSN. So we appreciate you letting me come on and talk YSN and the big things of the week in high school football.
No doubt. That's what we're here for. And we love what you guys do. So glad to support. So let's go with what do you want to lead off with this week?
Let's go undefeateds first.
Okay.
Last week when we talked, there were 12 undefeateds.
Okay.
We're down to 8. So
Okay.
8 undefeated teams. Austintown Fitch, Jefferson, Hubbard, LeBray, Garrettsville Garfield, Salem, West Branch, Lowville, and Wyndham. So we're down to 8, and that's still a decent amount of numbers, Justin, for our area and the people that some of our teams play. I think it's exciting. We had 12 last week, and we had some drop off that got their first loss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see what they do this week, but there's some pretty good teams in those 8. I'll talk about a few of them, but the one that I won't talk about their game, but West Branch again continues. The Shields at quarterback is doing fantastic. He's kind of taken over the keys as the quarterback, and they've been scoring 40, 50 points a game, defensively playing very well. And then I think that they will continue on the undefeated track this weekend. Salem, again, X-line and Johnson as the wide receiver and quarterback, they continue to put up big numbers. I expect them to get a win. So those are the undefeateds. We'll keep an eye on them for the week 5 report. But, shout out to those 4 being undefeated going into week 4 at 3-0. So those are the 8 schools that are undefeated left yet.
Very impressive. Yeah. Great performances. I feel like some of the weeks when you're talking about, I'm going to just use Salem for an example. You're hearing about that quarterback wide receiver combo week in and week out, just doing their thing. So hats off to those teams. And, it's impressive, it's impressive to be 3-0, but it gives you, like Urban Meyer says,
Sure.
It gives you the chance to go 4-0. So
Gives you the chance to go 4-0. That's a great point. And those teams will all have that chance. When I do this, there's so many good games, so many good players. We'll go to the top 5 players, and there were so many of them. I tried to narrow some down. First time to the list, Bo Brungard. They're 3-1 at Springfield local. Bo is being heavily recruited as that guy that's led Springfield to the state championship 2 years in a row. Last week, he rushed for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns and passed for 70 yards and a touchdown. So hats off to him. In Springfield, a big win over Geneva. He's doing great things. I'll talk about their game coming up with Lowville, and the Balone boy at quarterback has been fantastic. He's got a ton of touchdowns, passing yardage. That'll be a game we talk about, but shout out to player number 1 from Springfield, Bo Brungard, on a great game against Geneva last week. Number 2, Dylan Dominguez, the tailback from South Range. They're 3-0. They'll play Struthers this week. Justin, here's some numbers. 9 carries, 2 touchdowns, and 179 yards rushed. Pretty good performance. They were able to get him some rest for South Range, which I think is key. He carries the ball a lot. And they expect to go a long way in the postseason. So it's nice to see Coach Yeagley kind of get him in there, get the work done that they need before the league game against Struthers. But anytime you can run it for 179 yards 9 times and 2 touchdowns, big shout out to Dylan Dominguez from South Range.
20 yards a carry. Not
20 yards a carry. That's not too bad. You can make a living at $20 a carry. Here's one. Joey Batista, Valley Christian. A nice win. Coach Hake's doing a great job. First year at Valley Christian. Quarterback, they're 2-1. He passed for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. Love to give Coach Hake and Valley Christian some love. Batista's a great athlete, throws the ball very well, and that performance there speaks for itself. That's the team now, 2-1, that I think you'll see get a little better each week. They're coached very well. They play a good schedule, and it's one of those teams that I think can make the playoffs and maybe do some damage. But Joey Batista, shout out being one of the top 5 this week.
Absolutely.
Last 2, these guys, wow. TC Caffey, Hubbard High School. We talk about him a lot. 3-0 for Hubbard. They're going to play Poland. I'll talk about that game a little bit when we go on. But TC starting to be heavily recruited. 16 carries, 226 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he's approaching. I want to say he's coming up on 1,000 yards. I think he has a chance maybe to get it this week with a big game. What he's done is remarkable. You have to give credit to their line, which I'll talk about. But TC Caffey, tailback at Hubbard High School, salute you, young man, and the way you're performing week in and week out. 16 carries, 226, and 4 touchdowns.
Wow. And you said he's approaching 1,000 yards already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know he
four.
had the 400-yard game, and this one 220, so that's 6. And I think he was close to 200 in week 2, so he's at 8. So a 200-yard game gets him 1,000 in 4 weeks. That'll be something we'll keep our eye out. And the last guy, I think, is one of the leaders in the area. They're talented. LeBray High School quarterback Aiden Stevens. I was able to do a StreamYard with him, Justin, on our Joe Dickey Electric scoreboard show with Mike Ackles and myself. What a great young man that handles himself very well. The thing that impressed me, he spoke about all his teammates, the linemen, the receivers. 5 touchdowns, 17 for 85 yards rushing, and he ran the ball for 5 touchdowns. He can do it all. He threw for 165 and a touchdown, so he accounted for 6 touchdowns. Phenomenal young man. They're 3-0, and it's going to be another game that I'll talk about with them. That's a big game for this week. So shout out to Aiden Stevens, and shout out to those 5 guys for being my players of the week.
Absolutely. So Bo, Dylan, Joey, TC, and Aiden, congrats to you guys, and keep it up. I mean, great work. So great work.
It's amazing that you say that. I do a list, and I could put, we could talk for hours about some of the performances. Those were the ones with the limited number of carries and the bigger numbers that I lean to, but there's so many good guys. Balone had another great game. Johnson at quarterback. Mark Manning at Urston, the receiver, had a good game. There's a ton of guys that deserve shout-outs, but those were the 5 that we went with this week.
I love it. I love it. And the fact that you said, I'm just going to use Aiden as an example, the fact that you said one of the first things he did was thank his teammates. I love that. As a former coach, I just think that's the best, when that's a good kid right away, when he or she are thanking their teammates first and foremost.
Yeah, that's one of the things that impressed me the most with him. And one of the things we're proud of, kind of what we're doing at YSN. In our scoreboard show, we're able to get the StreamYard link and have the coaches come on with some of the players. So we're getting better at that. It's getting coaches on and getting players is one of the things we're looking to do the next 6 weeks. But yeah, he was phenomenal. And for a quarterback, anytime you could name your linemen and name them all and do those things, shout out to that young man and Coach Armini for what they're doing at LeBray, no doubt.
No doubt. Very good. Very good. All right, Steve. So you want to dive into
all right,
these matchups?
You ready to dial in on Steve Leslie's top 5?
I love it.
Game number 1. This was an interesting one. Jefferson's 3-0. Talented quarterback, good offense. One of our YSN schools. Want to shout them out a little bit. Whole lot of love for them. They're going to face Girard, who's 2-1. Girard has gotten better every week. Good offense. Coach Cochran's the offensive coordinator. Does a good job in the pass game. They're starting to click a little bit on offense. Have tightened the defense up. A league game, which is a good thing. I think this is a good league battle for 2 teams battling to get themselves up into that top spot. It has the makings of a great football game. And I think that it's a game where you're going to see some points scored. Jefferson's played good defense. So I think Jefferson, with their quarterback play and their skilled people, will score. I'm curious to see if Girard can keep pace offensively with Coach Pearson. But I think it's a great game. That's one on YSN Live that you can go on and watch. Again, they're free every week, thanks to all our great sponsors. WRS Insurance has stepped up. The wealth advisors have been huge for us. So I can't thank them enough for what they do to provide our fans to watch it. But that's one on YSN Live. That'll be my first one. Jefferson and Girard could be a great ball game.
Very nice. Very nice. And let me just jump in real quick, Steve, before you go to game 2. the fact that you guys put these games on for free for anyone to see is amazing. I know we've talked about this before, but you got a grandparent in North Carolina or an aunt and uncle in Chicago. They can watch these kids play just by going to your website. How cool is that?
It's awesome. And we get a lot of good feedback, on people watching it. They enjoy it. And again, you've done this a long time. We're not perfect. No one's perfect. There's going to be glitches and streams and you deal with that. But
sure.
We continue to get better every year, every week. It gets better and the numbers grow for us and people enjoy watching it. I think it's good for our area. But I also think it's, like you said, good for people that can't make the game or relatives or family members out of state. They're able to hop on. We get a lot of great feedback on that. And again, that's DJ and Brian, DJ Oakley and Brian Scott are the two owners. They had this dream and they continue to work at it and put time in it. And as well as I do, when you do this without great sponsors like we have, we wouldn't be able to do it. And we're proud of what we do. And I can't thank the fans nor all our sponsors enough for us being able to do these games every week.
Absolutely. Well, keep up what you guys are doing. It's a great job. So,
all right, game 2, little rivalry, little old SVC style, which you're familiar with.
Oh yeah,
Youngstown Ursuline, who lost to Chardon last week, 36-27. They gave up the first 33 points in that game and scored the next 27. It was a 6-point game. Chardon is one of the best teams in the state of Ohio, the defending state champs.
Yep.
Talented. Ursuline is a talented football team. They will travel to another powerhouse, Austintown Fitch. So many good names in this game. So many good players. Good coaches. Coach Parker, Coach Reardon. I start with those two. Proud of their schools. Coach Parker, proud of his community at Fitch. Dan Reardon has won 4 state championships at Ursuline. It has all the makings of a fantastic game, and I think it will be. I'm curious for Fitch. They had to not play last week. A game against Glen Oak had to cancel, not because of Austintown Fitch, because of COVID for Glen Oak. I'm curious to see, does that help Austintown Fitch or does that hurt them being off? That'll be one of the things I look at. Devin Sherwood. Evans is a receiver. Cam Smith. Their offensive line, they didn't play last week. How much will they continue to get better? Defensively, Fitch is always good. Youngstown Ursuline, Brady Shannon, Dean Boyd, Ja'Kylan Irving, DeMarcus McElroy, Mark Manning, who I talked about, had a big game. Frasco, their defensive line. It's a great game. It's a great matchup. I'm glad that the two schools are playing one another. We're obviously proud supporters of both. A lot of D1 athletes on this field. One of the top games in our area and one that we're thrilled to have at YSN. Phenomenal football game that I think can go down to the last possession.
Okay. And to your point, let's bring the SVC back. I miss that. I miss those days.
I do.
Those were good times.
I do. Austintown Fitch, Boardman, Ursuline, Mooney, Fitch, Warren Harding when they were in it. Great games. And a lot of these teams are starting to play one another, which is good to see. And people remember that. They do. The old Still Valley people remember the rivalries. Will be a great crowd at Austintown Fitch, no doubt. One of the premier stadiums in the area, Justin. You know that. So great environment. And a showcase for two of our better teams in the area, no question. I think that these two teams will make runs into the playoffs, do some damage, continue to get heavily recruited like both teams are doing. And I think this goes down to the wire and maybe a last possession.
Very good. Very good.
That's what, 2 games there. So game 3. This one is interesting. I talk about Balone at quarterback. I talk about Bonoski as a receiver. Lowville, undefeated, 3-0. Springfield, 2-1, 2-time state runner-up. Games at Lowville. Probably one of the biggest games at Lowville in a long time. Will be a great environment. Big-time numbers, 2 different styles of quarterbacks. Run guard will run it a little more. Balone will throw it. Good receivers, two good offenses. Both defenses have improved over the couple weeks. I think this is one of the top games, not only in the area, but in the state. These two quarterbacks, if you're a fan and you can't get to the game and you want to watch quarterback play, go to YSN and watch this one. Talent, receivers, quarterback, Bo Snyder at running back for Springfield. A lot of talent, two good coaches. Just a great game in a great environment. It's nice to see Lowville undefeated. It's a great stadium there in Lowville. They're proud of what they have. Their concession stand is one of the best, if not the best. I just think it's a great environment for the small schools. I really do. Lowville, Springfield, battling out for the league, and a game to keep your eye on, no doubt.
Love it. Love it. That's what it's all about too. And
no doubt.
You guys, cover every single division, but sometimes a lot of these smaller schools don't get the love like the big schools, the D1 schools do. And, again, that's to YSN, that's to your credit that, you're putting the spotlight. Obviously people are going to know Springfield for what they've done, but Lowville, I would have never known the Balone name without you guys. So that's to your credit.
His numbers are off the charts, and he's, in my opinion, he's that good. He throws the ball as good as most I see. I'm curious to see that ball game. And that's DJ. That's his vision of getting schools that don't get covered. He's an East Palestine kid. He went to East Palestine. Not knocking any coverages of anything. It's just hard for media to get everywhere. I understand that. In doing what I do for YSU, it's hard to get yourself out there and get everywhere. So we're proud of what we do. That is a game that will be as good as any game, in my opinion. It could be very high scoring too. There could be points off the board with different styles. Bo's going to want to see if Lowville could stop him from running the ball, and Balone's going to, he had some good numbers against Springfield last year throwing the ball. So that's a great game for game number 4, no doubt.
Love it.
Or game number 3, I'm sorry.
Or game 3, we're going to game 4 right now.
Going to game 4. This is another big one. In the NE8, we talked, South Range is up there. Poland and Hubbard. Hubbard 3-0. Poland 2-1. Poland got beat by South Range the first game, a big game. I'm sorry, not South Range. Got beat by Canfield the first game. Yeah, they played their arch rival, and they have a big game coming up with South Range. The 3 teams in the NE8, that seems to be South Range, Hubbard, Poland. This is a big matchup. To start out league play, Hubbard and Poland, 3-0 Hubbard, TC Caffey, we've talked about him. One of the better offensive lines in our area in Hubbard High School, no doubt. Poland, Fulton at quarterback does a great job. Calissimo, talented young man being recruited, great linebacker. Michael Gordon, another good player for Poland that does good things. Phenomenal football game to open up league play at Hubbard. I think this is one, 2 good coaches, Coach Hoffman, Coach Pavlansky, 2 talented teams. It's going to be a great game and a tough way to open up a league play. The winner of this takes a nice stride to continue on. The loser of it becomes in a tough spot with what they have ahead. So I think this one is premier. I think there's talent galore. The Hubbard community loves their football. That will be another crowd. When you look at all of our games, and there's going to be great crowds. It looks like weather's going to be good.
Yeah,
a great night for football. So the games that I'm doing, plus all the other ones we have, I'm pleased and pretty happy to hear about people being able to get out, even under these tough circumstances, to get out and go support these kids. And that's a great football game that's a flip a coin to me. I could see that going either way. And Poland's cleaned a lot of things up from that big matchup against Canfield. I'm curious to see how that matches up, but they have to stop Caffey if they want to win that ball game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's finish it off with game 5.
Let's finish it. This is the best game in the area to me, and it's no disrespect to any schools we cover, anything we do. Garrettsville Garfield, who became a new member for us, beats Warren JFK last week, who I have in high esteem as a program. I think they're going to have a great year this year. I think they'll continue on and make a nice playoff run. Garfield handled them pretty soundly. Is going to face LeBray, who's also undefeated. Wow. Garrettsville, we went to for primetime last week. They love what we do at YSN. We love having what they do. They will have the game. They'll have their own announcers at Garfield doing the game. We're excited about that. And LeBray, we're thrilled with. Coach Armini, Carter, the all-time leading rusher, Stevens, the quarterback that I talked about. A huge offensive line for Garrettsville Garfield with great kids that we had on the primetime show last week. This is a huge, another small school matchup on grass that I think will be electric. Can the bigger Garfield team slow down the three-headed monster in LeBray with Carter and with Sherwood? I mean, I'm sorry, with Stevens and their talented wide receiver against a big, strong offensive line and a very good defensive Garfield that did a great job against JFK for a signature win for them. So to me, it's the best game in the area. We're proud to, again, we have both schools, so we cannot go wrong from a YSN standpoint. But for the football fan that wants to switch back and forth from a good game, get your eyes peeled in on LeBray and Garfield. Like I talked to you about, 8 undefeated teams. There's 2 of them going to play one another. That's a fantastic game.
Very nice. Very nice. So just to recap these matchups, we got Jefferson and Girard, Ursuline Fitch, Louisville Springfield, Poland and Hubbard, and Garrettsville Garfield, and LeBray. So a lot of really good matchups. Once again, YSN, you guys covering a large area. So hats off to you guys.
Well, we'll do it all. We'll be there at 7 o'clock, the Audible show. Mike Ackelson does a great job. We'll have all the games on ysnlive.com. Well, you can hop on there and get any game you want. And then after the game, like I said, the Joe Dickey Electric scoreboard, thanks for their support. And we'll do the StreamYard with the coaches and have some fun. It's another great weekend for YSN.
Very good. Yeah. I mean, it's just so awesome that people can, maybe you're not feeling well that night and you just you want to stay home. You could just check out YSN and, with all the streaming devices now, you could just, put that right on your big screen too. You could just mirror that right on. So, I mean, it's the best of both worlds, whether you can go or whether you can, just stream it off of ysn.com. So hats off to you, Steve. Thanks to you and DJ and all you guys for what you do. Before I let you go though, I got to ask you, obviously you do the Penguins radio call. You're heading up to East Lansing this weekend. You got the Michigan State Spartans. So thoughts on that game real quick?
Love the opportunity for YSU. I really do. They're going to go to a great environment. It'll be probably a 70,000 plus or more for our young men to play and represent Youngstown. I think this team's going to come to play. I really do. I think we're catching Michigan State in between league games, which I think is good. Obviously, they're talented. Coach does a great job there. Coach Tucker has coached, Coach Yabodi from YSU. He was on staff when he coached Ashton when he played for Youngstown. So there's some ties there. It's going to be a great trip. I look forward to it. I know Bob does. I'm curious to see. This is a good stepping board for us to see where we stand going into league play because, after this game, we'll come home and they'll be on a bye week and then go to Northern Iowa, who played Iowa State tough last week. So it does not get any easier.
No.
Will be my first trip to Michigan State. So I'm excited to go up there and call the game and do some things. And like I said, it's an honor to do games with Bob and be a part of Youngstown State football. So I look forward to it. And hopefully the fans enjoy listening to us. And on your end of it, you got to take care of the Buckeyes for us at 12 o'clock against Oregon in a big one. So it's a big football weekend. It really is. The Browns and the Bengals, and I think the Steelers and the Bills. Our area loves football, and it's going to be a great weekend all over the board.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, again, thank you for what you do. Hopefully Bob has a food spot for you picked out already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would hope, knowing Bobby has that picked out, and you know what, I hope it's one of my favorite things to do to hear Bob Hannon call that Penguin touchdown. He does it better than anybody. That's what gets me going. So hopefully our Penguin fans can hear some touchdown calls on Saturday.
you guys had a dramatic one last week, and it's good to start off the season with a W. And best wishes to the Penguins. They got a tough one, but you never know.
Play.
That's
right.
why you play
That's
the
why
game.
you play the game. Absolutely. And these kids will be excited, and it'll be a great trip for sure.
Very good. Well, Steve, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All righty. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.